Okay, I'm going to call to order tonight's meeting, the July 19, 2018 Board of Supervisors meeting. I ask everyone to please stand for the pledge. Mr. McPhillips, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a moment of silence for those serving our country both at home and abroad? Thank you. Okay, first up on tonight's agenda is announcements. Ms. Frescator.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, fellow supervisors and professionals, and folks that are here tonight attending the meeting. I have some announcements to make on behalf of the Parks and Rec Department. Discount tickets are available for Regal. They're $9.50. Most of our amusement park and local attraction tickets have arrived, and the price list is available online, or you can call the office, and they're there Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The Bucks County 2018 dog licenses are available for purchase at Parks and Rec same time, Monday through Friday. Membership to the Bark Park are available for purchase. New members must complete an application, provide proof of rabies, dog license, etc. New member classes will be held July 25th, August 2nd, August 28th. Call for times to register. The next edition of the Township newsletter will be out in mid-September and will be delivered to homes and businesses. Watch for more information for the golf outing on October 8th at Five Ponds Golf Club. Registration will begin within a week. Registration is open for the annual trip to the Radio City Christmas Spectacular on November 17th. Tickets to the second mezzanine and motor coach transportation are provided. You also have some free time to spend in New York to eat, shop, and sightsee. Registrations are for some of the summer programs are still available. For any information on any of these items, please contact the Parks and Rec Department at 215-443-5428 or visit the Township website. That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Ms. Frescator. Mr. Monroe.
None this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. Mr. McPhillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to remind everyone about the Township's prescription medication take-back program. If you have any unwanted or expired medication, you can safely dispose of it over at the Warminster Police Station. It's the green box at the top of the steps, and you may recall that Bucks County leads the state of Pennsylvania in taking back unwanted expired medication, and I believe that's in large part because of townships like Warminster. In the last 2 months alone, Warminster has taken back over 100 pounds of prescription medications, and what that means is that's 100 pounds that's not going to end up in the wrong hands. It's not going to be abused. And I believe that we have such a successful program due to the fact that Chief Donnelly and Warminster Police Station, members that are here tonight, run such a successful program. And one of the reasons why we keep talking about the medication take-back program is because this opioid crisis that we're in the midst of isn't going away. But we're going to talk about a little bit more of about that tonight, about pending litigation. But on to my next announcement is the Greater Bucksmont Chamber of Commerce wants you to know about a ribbon-cutting ceremony. It's going to take place at Joe's Train Station, 283 County Line Road. And it's a really neat store. They sell all sorts of model trains. The event's going to take place this Wednesday, July 21st, 25th at 5 o'clock, or at 5:30, I believe. Sorry about that, at 5:30. I'm going to make it there for a while. I know a couple of my board members are also going to be there. But also this Wednesday on the 25th, I'm also at 6:30 going to be at the Warminster Library meeting with Township residents. So if you have any kind of questions or concerns about the Township, or you want to talk about model trains, I'd be happy to do that too. But I'll be at the Warminster Library 6:30 at the, Amanda thinks that's funny, 6:30 talking about... I'll be at the Warminster Library 6:30 this Wednesday, talking to Township residents. That's it.
I think that business is moving over from Lower South. They were located at Street and Bustleton for years and years and years.
I was really happy to be here.
That's not a new business. It's a business that's been around a long time.
Correct.
Glad they're coming to Warminster. Glad to have them. Is that it? All right, Mr. Crowley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quickly, I'd like to just welcome our new businesses to town. We have 4 new businesses besides Joe's Train Station to announce this month. Freedom Credit Administration Office at 626 Jacksonville Road. Old City Lending Solutions at 626 Jacksonville Road. I don't have the suite number, I apologize. The Vittle Kitchen LLC, which is a catering company, is working at 275 East County Line Road, and B&B Real Estate Group is at 250 West Street Road. As always, we thank these businesses for choosing to call Warminster home. We wish them all the best in their future endeavors. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Crowley. I have a few announcements prior to tonight's meeting. The board held an executive session to discuss litigation, personnel, and union negotiations. I also want to let the public know that we're available on YouTube Live now. If you want to watch our meetings, I hear they have brilliant Technicolor and their volume's pretty good. So, and especially tonight, the Phillies don't play tonight. It's no sports night, so hopefully people are tuned in. I also have some tickets available still. This is one of our biggest fundraisers for the Warminster Rotary Club. There are chances to win 2 tickets to every Eagles home game. They're $20 a ticket, a chance. We sell 750, I think, total. 500 we draw from, but we have 750 available. I think something like that, it works. But it's a great fund. It's one of our big fundraisers of the year, the Warminster Rotary Club. I know, Ms. Goldstein, I've already hit you up, so I'll be hitting up our other professionals at tonight's. The end of tonight's meeting. Mr. Schuster gets a pass because he's a New England Patriots fan, so.
What's the second prize?
Right. You get a pass. So after the meeting, anyone that's interested, the Rotary Club would be very grateful. I also want to welcome Eric Wirt, who's sitting in for Frank Bartle tonight. And I have one other thing I wanted to cover. And I'm glad the police are here tonight for combinations. I'm glad you guys are in the room for this. I put it on my Facebook page, and I really meant it. On December 9th, you saw the very best of Warminster Township on June the 9th. I apologize. There's a young man who's a Warminster resident, Dylan Crisco, who's was suffering from a brain tumor and was in the hospital for months. His family reached out to us and through Amanda Zimmerman contacted the police, the fire department. Everyone met this young man at St. John Bosco and escorted him to his house. And it was, I watched the videos. I was on vacation. I couldn't be there. But it was really emotional just to watch on video. I can imagine what it was like to be there. I mean, I want to give you guys a tremendous hand for what you did for this young man. They gave him some awards and courage, which this young man really deserves. He's far from out of the woods with his treatment, but what you guys did that day, and Joe Velton and the fire departments too, was just tremendous. I still think you're the best police department in Bucks County and beyond. So with that being said, I'm going to move on to presentations because we have a few tonight. The first one up is the YMCA. Josh Tyler from the YMCA is here. Josh, how are you?
Good.
Sure.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for having us. I wanted to be able to share with you a little bit of the state of the Y. We've been in our new facility on York Road for about 1.5 years now, and prior to that, we've been in the township now for about 3.5 years, okay? And the way I'm gonna do it is through this presentation, and I'm gonna highlight the 3 areas that we focus on as a Y. When we say we live our cause, we do it through 3 ways: youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. And I'm gonna give you a little bit of examples in a state of where we're at in the community with those 3. So the first one's gonna be youth development. So right now we're holding our summer camp over at Willow Elementary. It's a change from where we were in previous years. We were at Lod College. Lod College is having renovations done. Here's some pictures from some of our campers over there. What I want to share with you is financial assistance has increased 33.4% over 2017. So financial assistance, anyone can apply for it. In 2018, we have 125 campers on a financial assistance. What does that mean? We have around 200 campers a week, sometimes 250 depending on the week. So you can see a significant amount of our campers are getting support. And the total has been $139,000 in camp fees that we have granted the residents in Warminster. And I say that because it's significant that it's 33%, but we've definitely seen there's a need here in Warminster, and the community has spoke back. And they've been great. When they come to the Y, they are so gracious that we're able to do that through the generosity of our donors. But when you have a mom come in with 3 kids, and she's able to put all 3 kids in camp for all 11 weeks at a fraction of the cost, it's been really impactful. And and that's something that we don't see stopping. It's continuing to grow, and we see that percentage year after year. This is our third year doing summer camp in the area. And not only are we serving the youth, but we're also creating tomorrow's leaders as well. So here's an example of Ashley. Ashley is one of our camp counselors at Willowdale this year. And this came from our training. So at the end of the training, I challenged all of our staff to go ahead and post on social media how it impacted them. You can see that her staff shirt says role model. And we do an activity, what's called What I Really Do. And she talks about how her job title is a camp counselor, but she's really changing lives of kids and making an impact every day, all right? And that's just something, she posted that on her Instagram, which was fantastic, because we know all of the camp counselors do that, and they do the Instagram. I don't do the Instagram or Snapchat or anything like that, but they really felt impacted by what they're doing this summer, okay? So that's for our youth development. When we talk about healthy living and we talk about the membership at our Y, right now we have 187 memberships on financial assistance, and that's a 228% increase over 2017. What does that really mean? We have 911 total membership units right now, almost 2,000 members. Again, we're continuing to see that need, and the community's coming and asking for it, okay? Social responsibility. I'm gonna start with Veterans Pathway. So we launched Veterans Pathway last fall. What this pathway entails is we bring in a group of vets. They get 12 weeks at the Y, complimentary by the generosity of our donors. And they meet twice a week for an hour and a half, and they go through anything from nutrition to a service project to just working out, and in fact, just building their own little small community. So far, we've served 34 veterans since we launched in the fall. And I want to bring special attention to Regina, who's in the green jacket in the top right picture, because Regina has been so moved by the program and what it's been able to do for veterans. She's actually joined the Y now as staff and continues to be an advocate for the program, okay? 7th grade initiative. For those who don't know, 7th graders in our area get a complimentary membership for a year during their 7th grade year. We've done the studies. We know that that's a very impactful year. So an opportunity for them to come somewhere and be safe and also experience a little bit of freedom is the main goal. We've had 127 students enroll in that since we opened our doors in January of 17. And that's an excerpt from an email I received about how her 7th grade son loves coming to the Y. Again, I talk about how they're experiencing freedom a little bit, and she feels comfortable with them coming to the Y. Lastly here, 2nd grade swim initiative. Also out of the generosity of our donors, particularly the Warminster Rotary. They sponsor this program every year. The 2nd grade swim, all 2nd graders in Centennial School District were tested, okay? 349 students participated in 2018. That may be less than what actual enrollment is. Kids may be sick. Some kids may have forgot their swim trunks that day. 154 students qualified for swim safety lessons. What that means, if they aren't able to pass what we feel is necessary for swim safety, they get 4 lessons. They happen for an hour and a half, 4 separate weeks. They come in, again, it's complimentary during the whole time. They get a membership during that month as well, so they can use any of our facilities. And that includes Doylestown, so they can go up to the pool and they can practice, because we don't have a pool on site right now.
Yeah.
So they can go up to the pool and practice. What I really wanted to share out of this was of the students who participated in the lessons provided at William Tennant in June, 75% of the kids passed after the 4 weeks of lessons, which is great. I mean, it's 4 hours, it's a lot of kids, but we're able to get them. It doesn't mean they're going to be Olympic swimmers, not a bunch of Michael Phelps going on, but they're going to feel safe should they fall into the water or they hop into a friend's pool, okay? That's the last I was going to bring up, but I do want to mention one thing, because Dan mentioned about the opioid issue we are having across the country, and I just want you to know that the Y is actively working on a program. We have most of the details worked out. He is sitting on the committee with us, so it's something that I want you guys to look forward to, because just as you discussed, it is an epidemic. We have an opportunity for the Y and the community to support those who might be recovering, not only from opioid, but any substance abuse. And that'll be coming out in future months, okay? So I know I got a lot. I rattled through there pretty quick. I just want to say thank you again. My name is Josh Tyler. I'm the branch executive. Did anybody have any questions?
Just a comment, I understand that our Supervisor Emeritus, Leo Quinn, who is our Y liaison from the board, couldn't make it tonight. So.
Yes, he could not. He apologizes that he could not make it tonight.
Okay.
But Leo's a big supporter, and he's constantly out there talking about the why.
Yeah, I see your numbers are way up there. That's tremendous that you're approaching 2,000. Last year, I think you were at 1,100, so that's right on schedule.
It's great, and the fact that we're able to serve the community through the financial assistance has been, it's come in far more than we ever budgeted. So it's been great that we're able to continue to do that.
Yeah, I'm thrilled with this partnership. I really think it's really paying dividends for the residents and for the township.
Great.
Terrific.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Please give Zane Moore our regards.
I will, absolutely. Thank you.
Please, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on tonight's agenda is police accommodations. Chief Donnelly. How we doing, Chief?
Good. Good evening. How are you? I may use the portable mic shortly, but your timing couldn't be better for your thank you, because the squad behind me out here standing in the audience is a squad that handled that job. With the lieutenant, one of the lieutenants that handled that job. It was a privilege to be there. I couldn't be there either. I was running around, but the squad's behind me and the lieutenant behind me
And
handled it.
they gave him a
flawless.
hat and all these awards,
That's
encouragement.
all
That
Lieutenant
was
DeLuca
great.
back there.
Great.
So he did an outstanding job and put it together and organized it with Lieutenant Barrichello. And it was our privilege to go do it and meet that man. He's a true brave soul.
Yeah.
So, and I wish him well. I'm going to have three commendations, two for one officer and one for another officer. There was a third officer. He wasn't able to make it today. He's on vacation. That's Sergeant Casey Byrne. I don't have there's a lot more into these commendations and a lot more officers that could be included in more ancillary, but these two officers, they're primary officers. I'm going to start with Officer Danny Leperazzi. If you can come up, I'll move over to the
And
portable mic.
Chief, when you're done, we'll take a brief recess so everyone can get some pictures taken with their families after we do them all.
Sure. Am I on here?
And I ran into Officer Leperazzi outside. I wanted to welcome you home. Thank you for serving our country.
Yeah. If you can remember, last year,
He wasn't
almost
here.
every commendation was for Officer Leperazzi. He did an outstanding job.
Your
It was
parents
for
took
years
his
back,
word.
and his parents got tired getting up, taking all his awards. But he's back serving our community after serving our country for 10 months, like 12 months, and he's already on fire going forward. So the first two will be for Officer Leperazzi. And the good thing about this is there's more officers behind these that helped him out, but he was the point officer, and both these commendations happened within 5 days. So within 5 days, he cleared was the main purpose of clearing two major jobs or three major jobs in Warminster Township. But it says, the first one, it says, with a great deal of pride and admiration, this commendation for merit is presented to Daniel Leperazzi, badge 214, for intelligent and valuable police services demonstrated in an important arrest on or about June 6th. Whereas on June 6, 2018, Warminster Police were dispatched to an armed robbery at 7-Eleven located at 200 block of East Street Road. It was reported as subject attempted to rob a store clerk point a handgun. Later this day, while on patrol, you observed two subjects on the property of Tennant High School track. Upon approaching them, both subjects fled. A short time later, you apprehended one subject in possession of a simulated firearm. You interviewed the subject and determined the identity of the second subject and the purpose of the simulated firearm. Through investigation, you determined that the other subject used the firearm during the robbery. On June 7th, at 1951 hours, while on patrol, you observed the second subject identified as the robber in the Speedway area section of the township. After a brief foot pursuit, you were able to apprehend the subject and recover evidence of the crime. The subject was interviewed and confessed to the robbery. Whereas your professional demeanor, intelligent police work, and dedication to duty has brought a credit not only to you, but the entire Warminster Township Police Department. For your actions, you are hereby commended. You are a true asset to the department and the entire community. Again, they're fairly close. So this one's for burglary that Officer Leperazzi helped clear, actually two. It is a great deal of pride and admiration. The accommodation for merit is presented to Daniel Leperazzi, badge 214, for intelligent, valuable police service demonstrated an important arrest in or about June 10th, 2018. Whereas on June 10th, Warminster Police were dispatched and investigated a nighttime forced burglary to a business located at 600 block of Lewis Drive. On June 11th, officers responded back to the business, obtained video surveillance of the burglary. During review of the video, you observed the video and immediately I recognized the male who burglarized the business. Armed with this information, you went out on patrol. Short time later, you observed the male walking westbound on Street Road. Conducted a pedestrian stop of the male. The male then confessed to the burglary and was arrested and charged. Furthermore, the subject was later charged and another burglary that occurred in the 300 block of West Street Road. Whereas your professional demeanor, intelligent police work, and dedication to duty has brought you not only to you, but the entire Warminster Police Department. Your actions, you are hereby commended, and you are a true asset to the department and community. Officer Cicadas. Again, this job was supported by other officers in the department. It will be noted in her file, and they'll be commended later in roll call. But Officer Cicadas was the point and out on this job for a little bit by himself. So it's a commendation for merit, and it's with a great deal of pride and admiration that this commendation for merit is presented to Ryan Cicadas for intelligent and valuable police services you performed on May 31st, 2018. Whereas on May 31st, you were dispatched at 1575 West Street Road for a report of a check the well-being of a subject who resides there. Upon arrival, you were unable to gain access to the residence, but could hear the subject crying inside, who refused to answer the door. You continued to have a conversation with the subject through the door, and eventually the subject approached the door. The subject opened the door and immediately retreated to the living room area. Upon entering the room, you observed the subject on a couch, who was mentally unstable, intoxicated, and holding a large kitchen knife to her throat, stating she wanted to die. You requested assistance from other officers while attempting to de-escalate the situation. Upon backup arrival, you were able to ascertain that there was no one else in the residence. You continued your de-escalation techniques. The subject then discarded the knife, and you were able to take her into custody for a mental health evaluation. Whereas your professional demeanor, intelligent police work, and dedication to duty has brought credit not only to you, but the entire Warminster Township Police Department. Your actions are hereby commended, and you are a true asset to the department and the entire community. Congratulations. And that'll be it with the accommodations. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you, and stick around, fellas, because I'm going to take a brief recess so you can get some pictures taken with your families. So we'll be in recess for 5 minutes. Okay, going to reconvene our Board of Supervisors meeting, July 19th. Item C on tonight's agenda under presentations is Central Bucks EMS. Chief Chuck Pressler is here for a brief presentation. Chief, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Good evening, and thanks for having me. It's been a year.
That went
June
fast.
1st was a year. It did go fast. A lot has happened. I brought a few numbers just to give you an idea of how things have been evolving, I would say, in the last year. At the end of 2017, and we covered the township for 7 months, we answered 1,984 EMS dispatches in Warminster Township. And as for 6 months, we've answered 1,882 so far for the year. When we first started, we purchased 3 new trucks. We took care of the old stuff that we were dealing with, and we put 3 new trucks in service in the township. As of February, I had enough data to take the opportunity to put a second ALS unit at the Warminster station during the day, 7 days a week.
That's beautiful.
And that gave us some time we took a couple months to evaluate that to make sure that would be financially sound. And after that, we determined it would be, and we continued that service, and we still do today. So we also started the legal blood draws with the police department with that relationship, and that seems to be working out quite well, actually. And with that, we also put on a shift supervisor. That's a paramedic, and we built a responder for them, an ALS responder. So we don't always have to tie up a paramedic unit, and they can go take care of the blood draw for the department rather than tie up an ambulance. So it's been working really well. The crews have been doing really well. We've had a lot of success stories in the township. So quickly was amazing. We also started, we installed an oxygen generator in our station. That'll be in service in the next week. The object behind that is, and what we did at our Doylestown station, is we produce our own oxygen. It's cost savings. But that gives us the ability to also supply the fire departments and police departments in the township when they need their oxygen filled at no cost to them.
That's great.
It's just producing the oxygen. It's something we started up north, and we wanted to do it down here as well. The other thing we do with that is, in the odd occasions that we have big storms and we have large, long-term power outages, then we can also fill residents that are oxygen dependent. In the long term, if they run out of supplies, we can refill those supplies for them. So that's something we like to do to give back to the community as well.
That's great.
And as for that, we're covering the local events, township events and so forth with services. Hoping in the future that we can expand our Explorer program down to this township as well. It's been really successful at our Doylestown station. We have between 30 and 40 kids involved. So it's been a great program to get a program together for kids after school for young teenagers. And we're hoping that we can expand that service over the next year or two down here as well. So we're doing quite well, I think. Any questions from you
No,
folks?
I know you're doing quite well. You're doing a tremendous job, because, we were concerned with the transition, and would there be a drop-off in service? Far from it. Far from it. You guys have been great.
Can you expand a little bit on that junior program that you were just talking about?
It's an Explore program, if you're familiar with exploring and scouting, similar to that. What it does is focuses on teaching kids age 14 on up, first aid, CPR. They practice EMS skills. Some of them proceed to the Middle Bucks Tech program, and they take their EMT class there. And some of them get involved as far as volunteering on the ambulance later on. So it's great. They go out and do events with Boy Scouts at Camp Occonequan, and they travel all over the place and do a lot of community stuff. So it's been a really good program. The object was to start it and get as we discussed the opioid program or problem and all that stuff. This is our little effort to try to give kids something to do besides hang out in the streets.
Thank you.
Thank you for a job well done.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely, Chief. Mr. Schuster, I think you had something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment, since it had been approximately 1 year since Central Bucks EMS took over, I thought appropriate to have Chief Pressler here. And I just want to add, it's been a partnership which has been far beyond my wildest dreams on what can happen. It was unfortunate about a year ago when Warminster Ambulance had to shut their doors, but to have an organization as professional as Central Bucks come in, take over the service, add an additional medic, do the blood draws for the police, do all the other things that they've been talking about, and also provide an additional unit over in Warwick, which I don't know if I don't know numbers off the top of my head, but I know that responds to Warminster quite a bit. The people should know that they have an extreme amount of coverage here in the township, where 2 to 3 units are available at pretty much any given point. I've heard nothing but great things about their responses and how they've interacted with the community, and I just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of that, and again, commend them on everything they've done, and at the same cost as we've had over the last few years. So there's been no increase in cost for any of this additional benefits. So I just want to thank Chief and everyone under your command for everything they've done for the township. It has been an amazing partnership.
Thank you. And just to add, since I wasn't killing your clock, between our operational management and our command physician, our doctor, they've also instituted our drug programs down here as well. Medication therapies that we do, that we're a pilot for in the state. So that's been a really successful program down here as well in saving lives, plain and simple.
Fantastic.
Right.
And I believe, if I remember the numbers correctly, we're about 1/3 of your call volume consistently. Does that sound about right?
I would say from an entire department
Yeah.
standard, you're close to half
Half?
between you and Warwick and the rest of ours.
And I just wanted to point that out because I don't know.
You're our busiest township.
That I know.
That, yes.
But
There's no doubt about that.
I just want to commend you because not many people realize how hard it is to say, okay, you have this organization, and we're just going to double your call volume instantaneously.
It was,
And to be able to pull that off.
It was a test.
Is really, well, you passed it.
we answer a
Thank you.
911 call throughout our department once every 49 minutes
Wow.
throughout our system, so.
Well, keep up the good work. We really appreciate it.
Well, it's a great township to be in, and great departments to work with between fire and police, so it's been a great experience, hopefully for decades to come.
We
Thank
hope
you.
so.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chief. Next up on tonight's agenda is a brief stormwater presentation. Mr. Schuster?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a presentation which has been a long time coming. There have been lots of internal conversations between the Township and the Warminster Municipal Authority about the possibility of transferring stormwater management to the authority. The presentation tonight is just to convey some information and get a consensus from the board on what direction you'd like to take. Certainly nothing you do tonight would be final. There are other steps that would have to be taken. So, purpose of stormwater management, I think as all of you know, is provide for an effective system for water to enter the ground or discharge point, reduce flooding. We know we've seen lots of flooding issues in the township, especially with the recent heavy rains, so we know we have those issues to deal with. And also naturally reduce the pollutants in water. As water hits impervious surface, it carries all those pollutants with them. We want to make sure that those are naturally filtered out. And good stormwater management is how you go ahead and accomplish that goal. For costs, we have annual maintenance in the township. Our Public Works Department, they clean and maintain all the public facilities. They repair and replace those facilities on an as-needed basis. And we budget about $100,000 a year out of the general fund. Some of that is for the regular maintenance, some of that's for small or minor projects. So there is a benefit, or there is a cost to providing this service, and that doesn't take into account the soft costs or the labor costs that are already in there. Additional costs, you're all familiar with MS4 and how we have to be compliant with that program. That plan was approved a few months back. That's a federal program which puts in place certain standards. We have our plan, which does call for a number of basins and other best management practices to comply with. The current estimate that we're working with is $2.5 million to implement that plan over the next 5 years. That's not currently budgeted. We're trying to find ways on how we would go ahead and fund that. That has been a struggle. Also, if you recall, as part of the potential purchase at Shenandoah Woods, the plan was to put a basin out there to relieve some of the flooding and handle stormwater from one of the adjacent communities. As far as transferring it over to the authority, it is allowable under the Municipal Authorities Act. Other municipalities have done this. Other municipalities have also formed their own authority just for stormwater. My thought was that why create a new authority if one already existed? Why create brand new overhead if we already have it existing with the existing authority? If it were transferred, the authority would take over maintenance of the existing infrastructure. Any project to comply with MS4 would be done by the authority. Any other public stormwater project would be done by the authority. If it's for MS4 or for any other purpose, we decided we need to go ahead and do some stormwater work in a particular neighborhood or a particular area, that would be in the authority's realm. To pay for this, they would have to have a revenue stream. There would be a fee structure, presumably, that they would put in place, no different than what they charge for wastewater or for water. There's different formulas out there that can be used. Additionally, they can also put a program in place that they can get credits. I know that the EAC has looked at that, and there are lots of different ways to go ahead and put these credits in there. So if residents and businesses are employing best management practices, they can get a discount off of the stormwater fee that would be levied. If transferred over to the authority, this would not reduce the Public Works employees. This is not being done to have any layoffs. It would transfer some of that work over, and don't worry, there's plenty of other work for those employees to do. They do a fantastic job, but there's an endless list of things that need to get fixed or done around the townships, and this would give them the additional bandwidth to go ahead and accomplish those other items. Of course, the union is a little concerned about having that work transferred over, and we're in discussions with them right now about an MOU, which basically would say that the transfer would not result in any layoffs. And again, that's not the purpose of this. We're not looking to go ahead and reduce any employees. It would eliminate $100,000 annually from the budget, as well as variable soft costs, such as engineering costs. It would relieve the township of future project costs. So if we don't do that project at Shenandoah Woods, if the municipal authority does that, if you recall, we have that $7 million drawdown loan, we wouldn't need to draw down as much. So we'll start reducing our costs over there as well. If the authority was in control with it, they would maintain and conduct projects as they feel appropriate. The township would always retain the right to take stormwater back. So if down the road the township want to go a different direction and take that back, always reserves the right to do so. Resident complaints about flooding or anything to do with stormwater would be funneled over to the authority for them to go ahead and work with. And the last thing on this list is it really wouldn't change the land development project. The township engineer would still do the stormwater review for any land development project that comes through. There would probably have to be some coordination with the authority, especially if it ties into existing public facilities. In terms of next steps, if the board has a consensus to move forward, the authority board has expressed a willingness to take on this responsibility. The Environmental Advisory Council has also reviewed this and thinks that the authority is in a good position to maintain and even improve the current stormwater system by putting dedicated resources and dedicated revenue stream towards that. If you do have consensus to move forward, the next step would be for the solicitors, for the authority, and for our solicitor to work together to revise the applicable ordinances and put in place any agreements that would be necessary. That work can be done over the fall with a planned implementation of January 1st, 2019. And that is the presentation at a very high level. There have been lots of discussions between staff. I know Craig has talked to the engineer over at the authority quite a bit about this, about how this would work. I'm happy to answer any of your questions about this proposal.
I have a question. I'll direct this to Mr. Kennard. Are there grants available for some of the stormwater management that the municipal authority would be able to gain?
Yeah, well, they're available, and that was one of the fund sources that we referenced, and other clients we do that as well, whether it's grant funding. It depends on what type of projects, when you're ready to do them. Each township's at a different phase of this. It's quite costly, as Mr. Schuster mentioned. So that is an option. That's something the authority engineer will look into. We would not be involved in that.
Okay.
But yes, absolutely. That was one of the ones we listed over a year ago. We gave a summary and a report, and I think Karen came and did a presentation that grant funding, you have to
Right.
look into that. And that's something that the authority's engineer is comfortable with. I mean, that's something they do all the time for their clients as well. So.
Thank you.
And that's also something, just for a little history, idea was kicked around about creating your own authority maybe 5-8 years ago under a different administration. You had a director of L&I that was a former engineer. He was going to oversee that and create an authority. And I agree. Why create another authority? It creates more administrative costs. There's just more even confusion with residents and developers and whatnot. So I worked real hard with their engineer to work out the parameters for new land development, so we don't have overlap and there's no additional cost whatsoever. And then the authority has the staff and the engineer to take care of that. So. I work real close with Joe over there and his staff. I think it's been a great relationship since Joe and I have been here for the last 12 years together. And it won't be really much overlap at all as far as the authority taking over the maintenance and the upkeep and all the existing infrastructure. The new land development is a small component of what really needs to happen here at the township.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. I have one question for Mr. Schuster. What cost, do you have an estimated cost of what it would for our residents?
I don't at this point. It would be up for the authority to go ahead and develop that. I do know with the regulations that are in place, it has to be budget neutral. In other words, they can't find a way to make a profit out of it. It has to be based off of what the project costs, what the maintenance costs are going to be, divided by some formula. So it's not like they're going to be making money off it. It has to be all justified. But I don't have a number right now. I can certainly provide numbers that other townships have put together. However, it may not be an apples to apples comparison, but we can certainly look at that and forward that information.
That'd
to the
be
board.
helpful, because I'm sure there are some residents, especially ones on fixed incomes, that,
I mean, Craig, do you know off the top of your head?
Well, it could be as little as $50, you know. It really, and then it goes up depending on what projects, and that's really, it's they're going to have to design. This is where Greg mentioned about soft cost engineering. They'll have to actually design, plan out, and have a project shovel ready, as we used to say. Then they'll figure out the cost of the whole project, and then what they'll do is the next year, that's what will probably be the fee levy. It'll be divided up, and that formula, how it's divided up, is that's where you're trying to ask that. And they wouldn't. It depends how they create that.
Okay.
Your former solicitor and I went through different scenarios within Pennsylvania, and as Greg said, they're all different. Everybody's doing a little bit different. And Joe and I did talk about that. He's fully aware of those other townships that implemented that, and he's actually on top of everything I was before we decided to switch
Well,
over.
let me clarify something. Whether the authority does the MS4 project or we do the MS4 project, either way, the taxpayers are on the hook for it.
It would be the exact. I think they're going to go the exact same way.
and I just want to know what the cost would be.
So if it's if they do like one project is say the Shenandoah Woods Basin that we preliminary laid out, let's say it costs $500,000. They would, whatever formula they look at, the residential and non-residential properties, whatever formula they plug in, it'll be the same formula moving forward. That'll spit out a cost or a fee for that upcoming year. They have to design and implement everything and get it ready to go to know what that is. It has to be revenue neutral. So that is one thing. They're not just going to start laying fees out to the residents, and then, let's figure out what we're going to do. It has to be the reverse, which is where the upfront engineering costs that you have to carry is significant. You saw $2.5 million, but it's an ongoing process. It's soft costs as well,
Okay.
and that can, and permitting, that could get quite expensive.
I thought last year when we adopted the MS4, I thought we estimated it at like $5 million or something.
No, and really, it's really hard. There's numbers. I mean,
I mean,
it
that was the
could
number
be up
that
to
was thrown
5.
out there when we
Yeah.
adopted.
To be quite honest with you, in the township, been having some issues over the years. We've really cut back after that initial push, probably 10 years ago, on some real big stormwater initiatives. We had some big projects that were ones that we all felt were really a priority. There was property damage. There was houses in jeopardy. And unfortunately, those would be the ones you'd be doing now, designing, plan them out, and get credit for it. But there's been a little bit of a let's focus our efforts somewhere else in the last couple of years. We're taking care of smaller stuff, but the real large projects outside of the Majestic Oaks Basin near your properties there near the high school, that's probably the last large project. But that was really funded by the developer. We laid out preliminary work, we did concept plans, but that was, smaller dollars on soft costs.
So if they do take over and they come up with a plan on what stormwater issues they're going to be handling, so Shenandoah Woods would be one, I'm sure there's other ones around the township, would they add all that up and then decide how much residents pay? I'm just trying to get an idea of how that
Or
works.
is it case by
Right.
job by job?
By
I understand
job,
what you're
right,
asking.
right.
Actually, each client's doing it different. It depends how the authority wants to. We never got that far,
Okay.
how they are. Joe was still advising, Mr. Hagee on how to proceed. And they'll make that decision. I'm sure we'll know about it, but they could do a preliminary analysis of what we did and decide they're going to pay their engineer to go ahead and design all of it and see what it is, or they may piecemeal it each year in budget. It really
Will we have an answer to that prior to us taking action?
Yeah, we can.
you could that's
I think we can give you information. I don't know if the authority is going to be in a position to say, this is what it is. We can have that discussion with them, but see what they come up with.
Their engineer, I mean, I could even help with that, and Greg and I could talk to Tim and Joe about if
This
they
was
thought
not
of
a
it.
surprise,
Yeah.
you know, for anybody.
You know, what's their plan of action?
Okay.
But there will be no details as far as costs.
That would be very helpful. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Go
So
ahead.
do we have like projected savings on what this, with the transfer of that work over to the authority?
It's gonna be at least $100,000 per week that's gonna come, I'm sorry, per year, I wish it was per week, per year that's gonna come out of our annual budget. The big thing, though, is gonna be the avoidance of that $2.5 million, or whatever the number is, for the MS4 plan, as well as any other large projects that potentially come our way. So, yeah, there would be substantial savings by doing this from our budget. Again, as Mr. McKee said, you know, it's ultimately the same taxpayer paying for it, but it would be off our budget, and it would be something that the authority would be responsible for.
Okay.
The only yearly, outside of the 100,000 maintenance, that's a fixed number, and Greg and I talked about it, is more of our soft costs. That's kind of minimal until you get to, okay, there's a large project, there's a $500,000 basin or a retrofit or whatever. Then you're talking, you know, anywhere from 10 to 15% on top of that, and it depends on the permitting and all that. So you can start adding up, which you're fully aware of, some of these basins and the complexity of them. So it's not a lot each year until you hit a larger project.
So a situation comes where we have multiple stormwater projects that need attention. Do
Yeah.
they decide which ones they pick, or does the township say, hey, listen, you know, you need to do project A over B, or it's under their
all
control?
them.
And
They'll prioritize.
It's
they'll
their
prioritize?
control.
Okay.
The only control that we negotiated with and kept, and I thought it was, I didn't want to have their engineer reviewing a set of land development plans, making comments, then I make comments. You know, we even have some overlap with the planner but not on the technical end of stormwater, so it's more bigger, you know, 10,000 foot level, which is fine. But we just can't have two engineers, and then I can't defend their review. I can't defend their comments here in a meeting. I mean, it just would really, and then they'd have to inspect it to verify. So really, almost all control would go to the authority. And Joe understood my concerns and the staff's concerns. So, but as far as what projects get done, what priority, all that stuff we did 10 years ago, that list of which gets done, and they create a new list, no, that's all up to the authority. I hope that Mr. Hagee would communicate with Mr. Schuster on that.
So do I, yeah.
Yeah, I really think they would work very close. I mean, again, you always retain the right to take it back.
Yeah.
You know, so
I don't want to get into a position like that.
I'm confident they can do a good job. I'm just, it's,
They're set up, you know, the funding's there. They, you know, they could probably float some of the engineering costs and others to get some projects going and maybe do a couple larger ones and then assess the fees. And I would assume there'd be communication with the staff on that. You know, if Joe and I are at staff meeting every couple weeks, that could be part of his update to us as well. So
That
we
would
have,
be communication.
yeah.
we haven't really gotten into that part of it yet, just because we're trying to see about the concept first.
Quick question. If at some point in the future, the WMA is sold, do we automatically take it back? Do we create another authority? What happens to the stormwater if, say, 10 years from now? What happens to that responsibility if it ever changes hands?
Sure. So, first off, before everyone starts emailing, calling the direction.
I'm asking the question because
No,
I've already been texted it.
It's a valid question. So, the township is not pursuing anything at this moment to sell the authority per the decision of the board earlier this year. Should that occur later on, if the authority were to be sold, the board would have two options. Option number one would be to leave the authority in place with just the stormwater component, or alternatively, take the stormwater component back under the auspices of the township.
That answers my question. I just, when you decide to broadcast this live on YouTube, you deal with the consequences of live feedback on air, so. Understood. Thanks.
I know Mr. Hayes put together a memo. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to come up and,
Just going to ask him that.
come on up, Ken?
Kenny is the chairman of the EAC, and they've been looking at this as well on behalf of the township.
Good evening. Ken Hayes, 850 Lingo Drive. Well, we reviewed Greg's stormwater memorandum, and a couple things we looked at, again, was the fact that the township's method for funding the stormwater in the MS4 has competing demands. So, again, as chairman of the budget committee as well, we're looking at a couple different options. For one, the WMA is in a good position to take over and alleviate that burden from the general fund. Plus, their staff is well-trained and can do an adequate job. Let's see, what else? We didn't really comment on the fee structure because obviously that's something that we would have to review. But we did have some comments as far. Do you have our letter? We do. Okay. So one of the things that the EAC was looking at was the credits, which I think is very important because let's face it, impervious cover is the main driver in our stormwater issues. We have a lot of serious overland flow and then run off into the streams and discharge points. So what we would like to do, if this is enacted, is we'd like to be involved in the credit program and encourage the township residents and business owners to develop ways to reduce the stormwater flow. That's kind of my only comments at this point. If you guys have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, just to expand on that, so 'cause I was just looking at that myself, and so what you're saying is that if a township homeowner were to reduce their impervious surface, if they had a concrete, an old crumbling concrete patio or something like that, and they were able to reduce that or get rid of it, then whatever the fee is eventually down the line that would have been assigned by the water authority should be reduced. Is that kind of what you're suggesting?
Yes. There's obviously you have your building, so that's an impervious structure surface. If you would just say you put in pavers, which right now I believe in the township ordinance is considered pervious, which I don't believe it should be, but if you would say take your asphalt driveway or concrete driveway and put in pervious paver system that'll infiltrate groundwater or stormwater, that's a credit. Rain gardens, some way to lessen the overland flow and stormwater flow into our system. So there's multiple ways to do it. We think that with a credit system, it would give incentive. And plus for larger commercial areas, there's certainly engineering design that can retard or reduce the amount of stormwater. So there should be credits also offered for that, we would think. I mean, that's kind of what we outline in our letter, that there's multiple ways to approach this as far as credits go, rather than just saying, okay, here's your square footage, which the fee structure will be designed on an impervious surface, obviously, and then as people reduce that impervious surface, just apply credits. And we think that's a pretty good way to approach it, because that will obviously incentives will give people a reason to reduce their stormwater flow off their properties.
I'm assuming a fee or whatever that's eventually set up would affect large properties. Like I know, for example, Weiss Market, whenever that happens, when they came before us, one of the things that they talked about was, was reducing the impervious surface footprint of the property.
Yeah, I mean, this would hopefully encourage those kinds of methods. What we're after at the end of the day is compliance with federal regulations and, clean water. This is all about getting the cleanest water we possibly can. And if there's a financial incentive for residents, for businesses to go ahead and reduce their impervious or put in other practices that will reduce the effect of stormwater or the level of pollutants in the stormwater, that's something that needs to be encouraged. Absolutely.
I mean, let's face it, financial incentives are what drives everything, usually, for the most part. And again, in the commercial aspect, and engineers, there's plenty of engineers here, there's plenty of design that people could consider, even in existing developed properties. And one of the things, excuse me, one of the things I'd like to point out was our last point. You know, in these designs, one of the biggest problems, besides pollutants, is trash, you know, plastic bags and things like that get into our system and ultimately make it into our waterways. So, you know, that's another consideration for people. Just kind of pick up your trash before it goes into the storm sewer, or in a development, design some way to catch this, to capture that trash that flows into the basins or into our storm system.
I like the recommendations that EAC is taking on this project. Would you be working hand in hand with the municipal authority with these credits?
We would love to. If I mean, right now we have no communication with them as of yet. Obviously, this is just a response to Greg's memo. But yeah, I mean,
Do you think that'd be?
we would love to take that, you know, that responsibility and work closely with them.
Absolutely. If the consensus of the board is to move forward, then we would begin with the agreements and the ordinance, and certainly can incorporate into that the language that would require the authority to work with the Environmental Advisory Council and take their opinions, which I'm sure they'd be incredibly, willing to do. I can't imagine them saying no to that. Yeah.
Yeah, we think the EAC would be value added.
Absolutely.
To the whole process.
I agree. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And a big thank you to your team.
Thanks.
Yes.
Before I ask for the board's further input or consensus, does anyone from the public have a comment on this discussion? Please come to the podium, ma'am.
The question that I would have, it was good, the ideas that you brought out, because I think we all need education on what that means, like even the residents, like how to reduce like impervious surfaces and plant more trees. And don't take plastic bags when you don't need them.
All right. Sounds like you'd like to join the EAC there, Darlene.
Looks like you'll be educating residents, the EAC.
I mean, it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is there a consensus of the board to move forward with this possibility? I'm in favor of it, and I want to thank the authority for stepping up and trying to take this burden off of our hands. And I think they do a tremendous job with it. I really do. So,
I'm in favor.
Absolutely.
well, I think we have our consensus. So we'll have the solicitors get together and talk some more. We won't take formal action until
No, the
December, is that your?
Well, it'll be before December. I imagine sometime in the fall we'd be ready. The implementation would be scheduled for the new year. But we'll go ahead and get the solicitors working together on this, and of course, try to provide any information that we can find on a possible rate structure or range that
would be
you
great.
requested.
Great.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Next up on tonight's agenda is land use matters, public hearings, and ordinances. Item A is hearing of the Warminster Township 2018 Comprehensive Plan Update. Mr. Work, would you like to take that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. We'll now move into the public hearing section of this evening's meeting, which means that we have a court reporter here today taking down everything that's being said during the hearing portion. So later on, when everybody has a chance to make a comment or ask a question, please keep that in mind so that the court reporter can take everything down properly.
No foul language.
No foul language, that's right. Up for consideration is the township's proposed comprehensive plan update entitled Launching Toward the Future, Warminster Township Comprehensive Plan Update. The hearing was advertised on Tuesday, June 26, 2018, and Friday, July 6, 2018, in the Intelligencer newspaper in accord with the applicable law. The legal notice reads as follows. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Warminster will hold a public hearing on a comprehensive plan update for the township and may consider adoption of same at its meeting on July 19th, 2018 at 7:00 p.m. in the Township Building located at 401 Gibson Avenue, Warminster, PA 18974. The comprehensive plan update consists of the following chapters. Number 1, introduction. Number 2, goals and objectives. Number 3, demographics. Number 4, existing conditions. Number 5, future conditions. Number 6, community context. And number 7, action plan. The comprehensive plan update also includes associated appendices, tables, charts, figures, and maps. A copy of the comprehensive plan update is available on the Township's website and at the Township offices during normal business hours. All interested parties are invited to attend the hearing and participate. So I'd now like to mark the following board exhibits. B number 1 is proposed 2018 comprehensive plan update itself. B2 is the legal notice I just read. B3 is the proof of publication. B4 is the June 1st, 2018 contiguous township comment request letters. B5 is the June 1st, 2018 school district comment request letter. B6 is the June 1st, 2018 County Planning Commission request letter. B7 is the July 11th, 2018 County Planning Commission review letter. B8 is the July 12th, 2018 Township Planning Commission approval recommendation letter. B9 is the July 16th, 2018 Environmental Advisory Council review letter. B10 is the July 19th, 2018 Township Comprehensive Plan Update Review Response. And B11 is the proposed approval resolution itself. With that being said, and those exhibits entered into the record, I understand that Township's planning consultant, Judith Stern-Goldstein, is going to be making a presentation this evening. Judy?
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Board. We'll start with the next slide. The title of the document for your comprehensive plan update is Launching Toward the Future. It's recognizing the past and the Township's great impact on the space technology and looking forward to the future. Basically, the need for a comprehensive plan update is that the MPC recommends that a comprehensive plan be looked at and reviewed every 10 years. Your last comprehensive plan was dated and adopted in 2003, so you're ripe for an amendment. In addition, there's been a demographic change in the Township. There's been a lot of change with things like Ann's Choice, the Five Ponds development, aging of the baby boomers, and advent of the millennials into the major demographics. The plan purpose, basically a comprehensive plan serves as a guide. It develops a common community vision for the future and addresses relevant planning issues. To work on the comprehensive plan, as you remember, the Township created a comprehensive plan subcommittee. And that committee included representation from the Board of Supervisors, that was Kathy and Jason. It included representatives from the Township Planning Commission, and in addition included citizens from the Township, representing both residential and non-residential communities. The Comprehensive Plan Subcommittee had 7 formal meetings. In addition, we started out with a bus tour. It was supposed to be a 1-hour tour of the Township, ended up being the infamous 3-hour tour.
That's right, it's what Gilligan and the skipper thought.
It was, but we weren't lost. We knew where we were at all times.
And someone brought pretzels that saved us all. I forgot who that was.
That was me.
That was
Can't
you.
go anywhere without food. I think the only thing missing were some adult beverages, but, you know, it was a Township function. But we did learn a lot on that tour. The reason for the tour was to get the common look at the Township, look at the issues together, develop a common vocabulary, and really kick off the event. And also a little sort of team building or bonding experience on the bus. The next component of the plan, in addition to the subcommittee, was the public participation process. And you can go to the next one. The first component was a town hall meeting. Sorry, I keep drifting. I'm a little short for this. Town hall meeting at Ann's Choice. Attendees were really sort of read into the whole concept of what's happening. We did a lot of listening. Much more listening than talking that evening. We did meet people. One of our subcommittee members, we met his parents, their residents. It was very nice. Recurring theme really was transportation. pedestrian and vehicular, and how to get them to the goods and services they want. And they also wanted a McDonald's.
Yep.
That was the
They
one
want
thing that I didn't
McDonald's.
expect to hear.
They'd be very happy if you put McDonald's right there.
Yeah.
Can't get McDonald's to bite.
Every meeting, there's one surprise. That was my surprise that night. Next, we
Mr.
had.
Riley's in the room.
Sorry.
So Mr. Riley's in the room. I hope you're listening.
Yeah. Next, we had 2 community visioning meetings. One was in May of 2017, and the second was in September. The one in May was not as well attended as anyone would have hoped, dreamed, or even wished for. The second one was very well attended. We solicited input from the township residents, and both were held at the Ben Wilson Senior Center. Next. Basically, at the community visioning meetings, the big one, we used the nominative group technique. We solicited a lot of information from residents, and in the end, then they voted with dots, and you see a little photo of them voting on the side. The basic results were that the positives that came out of it, or their view of positives, was low taxes in the township, variety of land uses, and they really enjoyed the accessibility to shopping and amenities and wanted to make sure that was still part of the future. The negatives that came out of it, or the things that they didn't like now or don't want to see in the future, traffic congestion was an issue when they thought the light synchronization wasn't quite working yet. They also did not want to see any more overdevelopment of residential uses and new commercial centers. They felt in that case there was enough. Lack of safe pedestrian connectivity was a theme also. You can't get from here to there without using your car. And sometimes it wasn't even the lack of the actual conduit to get there, it was the lack of perception of it being safe. And then also water contamination, based on the timing of the meeting, that you could tell that was a hot topic. We also then had a citizen survey. The survey was live from April to June of 2017. 724 citizens submitted their information. It was hosted on SurveyMonkey. Some people did, or some residents did fill it out by paper, then they were entered in by township staff. Majority of the people that responded had lived in the township for at least 20 years. I found that interesting. The top 3 reasons from the survey that people choose to live in Warminster were the reasonable home prices, reasonable taxes, you're seeing that theme again, and proximity to family and or friends. Basically, people live here, grow up here, and want to stay here. That was a very positive message. Not every community gets that type of result. You should all be proud of that one. And what residents desire, quality public school system, and facilities and programming for school-age children. That came out as a big one also. Population and demographic change or trends. Basically, Warminster saw your growth in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, mostly in the 1960s. You peaked in 1980-ish, had a little dip, and we're projected to be at 34,620 people in the year 2040, and that's based on the DVRPC population projections. And DVRPC is the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. So we're on a trajectory for that. Some of the interesting things in population, your median age has increased. In 2010, or 2000, it was 37.9. In 2010, it was 44.6. And we're predicting that in the 2020 census, it's going to be probably closer to 48, maybe even 49. We're all aging. 31.6, almost a third of the population is 60 years old or older. Another interesting thing, your number of households increased, but your number of family households decreased. And that's because a family household is 2 or more residents. So that's telling us that you have more and more households of just one resident. And that's consistent with the senior housing and individuals, both millennials living in, like, on their own for their first homes or apartments, and seniors living in individual units. So we had all the base information, then we start looking at the guiding principles. Guiding principles were developed, or major goals, if you will, were developed for each of the main components of the comprehensive plan, the first being land use. So the guiding principle for land use is to preserve and enhance the diversified mix of land uses to maintain a balance between growth and preservation. And then for each major goal, we had implementation strategies, and this is just a sampling of some of the implementation strategies. Maintain the commercial and industrial corridors, encourage economic development, coordinate with the surrounding townships, look at infill, adaptive reuse, some things the township's doing already, some things the township can do quite a bit better still. Guiding principle for housing, provide diverse and affordable housing options to meet the needs of all households now and into the future. Something that the committee spent a bit of time on these implementation strategies also. Really want to continue to encourage a variety of housing types. As time changes and lifestyles change and family structures change, we need to be poised to accommodate that. Periodically review the ordinances and make sure they're in tune with what is happening in the community. Monitor to make sure that we're supporting mixed uses. Work with nonprofit agencies and other governmental agencies to support affordable housing initiatives and opportunities for people of all abilities and disabilities to live in Warminster Township. Support the rehabilitation and adaptive reuse of residential structures. Make sure that everything's being kept up. Give people opportunities to transform the residence into something else if they need to. Provide for opportunities. And then continue with our inspections and code enforcement for health, safety, and welfare. For economic development, a hot topic for all of us, seek a balanced, diversified economy in order to maintain and enhance the quality of life of local residents. And quality of life is more than just, going out and having green spaces. It's also making sure your budgets work. You need to have the non-residential and the residential to make it all work together. Some of the implementation strategies include evaluating the physical improvements that could be made to your corridors to enhance their corridors. Market vacant spaces. Let's not have vacant spaces, and I think the township's been doing a much, much better job of this in recent years. We see that every month, announcing the new businesses coming to town, and we see, although not all of them are built, but we're seeing some people come into the larger empty spaces, not as quickly as we'd like them to actually occupy the spaces sometimes, but the township's doing their part. Promote regional activities that could then, in turn, help the local and regional economy. Conduct a corridor study along Jacksonville Road, and this is something that the plan's not even adopted yet, and the township's working on it. There's been a coalition formed. The first meeting was held already, and it's pretty active and a vibrant group to look at improvements along the Jacksonville Road corridor. And then also, one of my favorites is, I call it the parking diet. Look at your parking regulations, and let's make them appropriate for now into the future. Gone are the days of the big retail and list, a 3-acre, actually a 5-acre building and a 10-acre parking lot. We're seeing the remnants of what's left over from that. So a parking diet can really incorporate a lot of things. Some of what the EAC is working towards, reducing impervious. Less parking is less impervious. We can maybe convert some of our former paved areas into green areas, recapture that with some adaptive reuse and enhance the vibrant economy. And then we come into community facilities and services, and we have 2 guiding principles for these. Provide for appropriate and adequate community services and facilities within the practical fiscal limits of the township, and continue to maintain, enhance, and expand natural, historical, and cultural open space areas, trails, and parks and recreation opportunities for township residents. And then some of the guiding principles have, with the implementation strategies, implement a comprehensive greenway and trail network. And that, you're going to see some themes carry through. People need to get from here to there. Greenways also enable habitat. Our wildlife can get from here to there along the greenways. We can incorporate trails with some of the greenways. Collaborate with your adjacent municipalities to connect to their greenways and trails. Identify potential improvement projects. Work with other organizations. Public and quasi-public buildings and recreation areas can be shared for programming. And continue to analyze the costs related to staffing and maintenance of any proposed plan or park. So I like to say for every $1 that you spend on a park improvement, it's $2 in maintenance and long-term care. So let's make sure we're planning ahead for it. And Township obviously has been, but as we go into the future also. Continue to monitor resident needs and demand for services. Cooperate with state, county, federal government, and adjacent municipalities for emergency management services to make sure you have adequate coverage. And you had a presentation earlier tonight. Obviously, you're on top of that, which is why this is a continue to, not not start to. Establish a long-range strategic plan regarding response times for emergency services, and continue to examine the feasibility of developing a municipal complex. I was here in 2016. We presented the facility study. I know you have a committee looking at this. It's not a short-term answer. It's a long-term look at things, but to continue to work with that, that was in the comp plan also. Transportation and infrastructure. There's a lot that can be done. We have a lot of general things. I'll read through the guiding principles and touch on some of the implementation for this. Provide a safe transportation system which optimizes mobility and access, sustains quality of life, strengthens the economy, and protects the environment. It's a mouthful, but basically don't just pave paradise. Whatever you're doing, you need to make sure that you're dealing with greenways and corridors and things that we started talking about with the Jacksonville Road Group already. Improve the township's infrastructure to support future demands. And some implementation strategies include maintain and improve streets, develop policies regarding traffic calming, including participation of the residents of individual neighborhoods that are being affected by the traffic and or by the traffic calming devices. Work with SEPTA to ensure the public transportation needs of residents are being met. We're hearing throughout our public outreach that people want to use the public transportation but often can't get to the stops or to the station. So we need to find other ways to get people to public transportation. Sounds intuitive that it should just happen automatically, but there are things that we can continue to expand. Shuttle buses, pathways, greenways. Identify gaps in the bicycle and pedestrian network and fill them. Provide pedestrian and bike rail trail connections to the major hubs of activity, schools, parks. And then we get into natural and cultural resources. Protect the natural environment and conserve the natural resources of the township while accommodating planned growth. It's a balance, and it's something that we need to do and continue to do. Acquire, enhance, and manage an integrated network of protected open spaces that are linked together by greenways or trail corridors. Again, you're seeing some themes transcend beyond individual categories. Some of the implementation strategies include continue to promote site development practices that are sensitive to natural resources, and you have a lot of regulations in your ordinances, and that's good, but we can continue to develop them. Conduct an assessment of riparian areas, existing ones, and establish appropriate standards to further enhance and protect the riparian corridors in the township. Encourage conservation design standards to minimize the impact of development. Basically, a smaller footprint for development would be more green space on any individual property. Continue to encourage flexible and innovative approaches to site development. Promote energy conservation and efficiency practices to residents and businesses. Implement strategies and practices to reduce energy consumption. And then on the next page, you're there already, thank you, Amanda. Undertake a historic survey to identify potential additions, deletions, or modifications to the township's historic list or historic resources. There's, as we did the comp plan, we realized that not everything was quite as concrete as should be, and there's need for an actual scientific and precise study of the resources. Continue to support the preservation efforts by the Warminster Historical Society and other local groups. Consider identifying key resources with historic or cultural markers. Seems a simple thing. There are some already, but that's a program that could be continued to celebrate your resources. And continue to seek funding for the historic and cultural resources in need of preservation and rehabilitation. There's nothing worse than demolition by neglect. That's it for the plan itself, the overarching goals. But I do have to point out, sort of the meat and potatoes of this plan is the action plan. And the action plan is found on pages 92 to 109. It's a series of charts that look like this. I'll hold it up. But really what it does for each overriding goal, There are several objectives or implementation strategies, and then there's really action items for each. So there's an objective, an action item, a priority, and then the responsible entity for each of these. And you can tell there's pages upon pages of that in the document, and that's really going to be your checklist going forward. Each year as you come to budget season, you can look at this for things that would require budget line items. For the future, you can plan ahead. Some of these things wouldn't cost any money. Some of these things you could implement instantly. Some of them are ongoing that are already in progress and need to continue. So this is your checklist, and it can serve you long and into the future. And I just have a couple more housekeeping things for you. As Eric mentioned in the exhibits, this went out to the Bucks County Planning Commission, your Planning Commission, the contiguous municipalities, the school district, and there were several comments received. I prepared a memo for you. It's dated today. We wanted to make sure we captured anything that might have come in yesterday or even this morning. There were some comments from Karen Whitney, your Parks and Recreation Director, and in my memo, we itemized what they are and our recommendations for inclusion or implementing those into the draft. Some comments from Bucks County Planning Commission that we've responded to, and there was one item that we really thought should be done in talking about sort of adaptive reuse and looking for new sites for, or new uses for commercial uses. We had the word retail in there. We're taking the word retail out in response to BCPC's recommendation because it really needs to be looking at all potential uses. That was a good one from them. There were also some comments from a resident, Dennis Cook, regarding some historical items, historical issues, I should say, and he had 2 rounds. The first round, we did provide additional verbiage and recommended inclusion of all of those suggestions. The second round was getting a little too specific, a little too much specificity for a comprehensive plan that could happen in implementation sessions with individual components of the plan. And then there were some comments recently received from the EAC. One of the sort of the general stating their overall issues really was more inclusion. They would like to be included in the future if there are any other comprehensive planning updates. They would like to be included in a lot more of the implementation. And then one of their comments was some specific items in the action plan. They would like to be also listed as one of the responsible entities, and we recommend inclusion of them as the responsible entities. The EAC this year, I've spent a bit of time with them. We did some Riparian Carter presentation, and they definitely are on the ball. We're talking the same language, and the items that they're asking to be responsible for, it's a no-brainer. So that they were my comments.
Thank you, Judy. So first, I'll open it up to questions from the board.
Jason, Kathy, if you guys want to, you guys spent an enormous amount of time on this.
I'll defer to Kathy first.
I think the plan allows for growth in the township. I'm happy that we're going to be working with the impervious surfaces, with the retail that we've talked about. That also helps out with the stormwater management, which is good. We want folks to be able to get from point A to point B. And you brought that up as far as we have the train station, which is a great draw for folks from all different townships that come to take the rails. And we need to get people from point A to point B. And I think the sidewalks is a big step. Jacksonville Road, that would be really helpful for people. They could take their bikes, walk, what have you. Greening up the township. Basically, we're improving the quality of life for our residents in the township, and I'd like to thank, we have 2 of our board members here, Joe Warner and Wayne McCulloch. Thank you for donating your time to this great project. It also leaves it open for future boards that if they want to tweak anything, there's that ability to be able to do it. It's not as rigid, like you said. So I like the fact that we're greening up the township. We're changing some of the signage with, with our new businesses, which will look really nice. And the bus tour was the best, though, wasn't it, guys? I think it gave us a really great vision to work on. So I'm proud of our body of work, and it was a pleasure working with all of you. That's it.
I'll not kill the lily, and I'll echo many of Kathy's comments. What we set out to do was create a plan that reflected what we thought the future of the township, and when I say what we thought, not just the board members on this particular committee, but the public and everybody else who participated, thought which direction that Warminster would be heading here in the next 20 years. We looked to create a township that focused on mobility, walkability, sustainability. We have a lot of great things going for us in this town. We have a lot of opportunities in the years ahead. As this board changes over time, and there'll be other boards that follow us, we wanted to really try to give them a roadmap of how we could proceed to remain competitive with our neighboring communities. We may not have as large land lots as Warrington does, or Northampton, but we do have advantages that other communities don't. We need to make sure that we're doing the most to highlight them and make sure the public has access to them at all times. I don't really have any questions at this point. I'll save further comments till we get towards the end, and I'd like to switch it back to the chairman.
And the only comments I have is, and I want to thank the committee that spent an enormous amount of time, and Kathy and Jason and you too, Judy. I mean, this is a really extensive read, and it's available on our website. Any residents would like to just go thumb through it and take a look. It's really detailed, very extensive. You guys did one hell of a job with this. You really covered every base, so I'm really pleased with it.
I do have a question, too. Somebody wanted to applaud?
Oh.
I jumped the gun. Under number 7, for the EAC's memo, where they indicate the clarification on action item in Chapter 7 to, quote, remove requirements for large minimum track sizes and open space design, development to allow for infill development on smaller tracks, end quote, as follows. And it goes into a couple. It says, what are the benefits? Is this the best interest of the township? Would this be detrimental to green space plans? Well, obviously that drew my attention. Can you just respond to that for a moment?
Sure. We have, in some zoning districts today, we have parcels that exist that are significantly smaller than the minimum lot size, and they really are hampered on what they can do. So look at appropriate lot sizes in some of the districts. Not everything are big developments, even in non-residential. So bring some of those lot sizes and requirements down to appropriate sizes, and bring the green areas like proportionately with them, so that we can have some more adaptive reuse and infill of our abandoned, neglected spaces. So it was really to provide opportunity. It was not to provide less green area. It was to provide more opportunity for the areas that already are there.
Understood. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of wonderful things about Warminster Township, but in terms of a town center,
Yes.
is any mention towards that?
Yes, and one of the things we recommend in the future land use map is a category called mixed use / town center. And you see that a lot along the Jacksonville Road corridor, is where you mostly see the pink areas. And we're looking, and also a little bit along 263. We're really looking at opportunities to tweak the ordinance and provide either organically or as a planned effort by the township, maybe where a future civic complex could be, or organically see the mixed uses coming in. We're already seeing some of that along the Jacksonville Road corridor near the train station. We want to encourage more and more of that. It's the development of the future, and we want to provide that flexibility to get those developments in.
Okay, and in the population forecast, what were we thinking, 2014? What was the number roughly?
2015 right now.
2040, I should say, excuse me.
2040.
Yeah, drawing it out that far.
34,000.
Something like that. I just saw it.
So roughly the same as,
Well, right now we're
32?
We're 32,685-ish.
That's the last census.
And, oh, look at that, 34,620. That was pretty good. Yeah, it's a gradual increase now. It's nothing significant. And you're going to probably see a lot more one person or single households, less families, which is defined by 2 or more people.
okay, very good.
Yep.
Is anyone from the public? have any questions or comments? I know this is a lot to take in one sitting. Sure, come on up, Ken.
Hi, Ken Hayes, 850 Lingo Drive. EAC wants to recognize all the hard work that everyone put into this, and we're pleased that we're be considered to be added to some of the action items. Judy and I have spoken a couple times about this, and you know, we're fine with all the comments that were addressed.
So,
That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
Anyone else have anything? Does the board have anything else before I ask the solicitor to craft a motion to adopt the plan?
I would just say that the one thing that when Kathy and I talked about this, was we wanted to try to help create a document that doesn't exist in a vacuum, that can live and breathe over the next decade or so. I mean, 2003 was the last comp plan, and unfortunately, in the intervening years between 2003 and 2018, a whole host of unexpected things occurred that radically changed how that comp plan could be implemented. We're hoping here that we've painted not so much specific actions, but broad strokes that we could follow, give some direction on how to follow those. But we hope that you know, this board now in 2018 and a board in 2025 will still be referencing the document, that doesn't become a relic of its time. And I think that the staff at Boucher and James did a terrific job of organizing and putting this together. When we interviewed firms to help us with this project, they presented by far the best presentation that evening, and they lived up to every part of it. So I just wanted to say thank you to Judy and her team.
The team, I'll take that back to them.
Yeah.
You know it takes a village with
It
me.
does take a village, but you guys did a terrific job when you were, especially at the visiting meeting, where you're representing Warminster Township. And that was a lively meeting with a lot of folks. And
I was down in North Wildwood. I'm out on my patio having a cigar, and Jason's sending me each what blow by blow. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa.
It was a fascinating meeting.
Yeah, it was.
It was very
At least
instructive.
none of them said get rid of McKee.
Yeah,
I was
I-
waiting for that.
It
It
was
was
2
fun.
months before an election. It was going to be a
Yeah.
harbinger, perhaps. But it was eye-opening as just a resident to see it. But, I mean, the execution of that meeting, the precision, and honestly, guys, if you get an opportunity to go online and look at the comp plan, the results of that meeting are in the back of the comp plan. The results of the surveys, they're in the comp plan. It's all there for everybody to see. I think it's really good information. Anybody who's involved with Warminster Township, looking to be involved, that's a great place to start to sort of see where the public sits on things. But, you know, the kudos all around to the board and everybody who participated. But I really wanted to take a moment to recognize the team at
Thank
Boucher
you.
and James for the work they did. I'm glad we went with you guys, and thank you.
Thank you. I'll
Tremendous
take that back
exercise.
to the group tomorrow.
I'd like to ditto, thank you, Judy and her team. I want to thank all the residents that filled out the surveys and came to the vision meeting. All of your input was very helpful in compiling this awesome comprehensive plan. And hopefully this will go on for future generations to come, and we leave something behind. And I'm very, very happy with that. I thank all the folks that volunteered on the board. Again, Wayne and Joe are here, and rest of our board. It was fun working with you, with Jason, and the rest of the board. Thank you.
Awesome. Well done. Hey, if there's nothing else, I'm going to ask the solicitor to craft a motion that we can adopt this comprehensive plan.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. As I mentioned before, Exhibit B11 was a proposed approval resolution, which has been numbered 2018-27, which is entitled "A Resolution of the Township of Warminster, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, adopting the Township of Warminster Comprehensive Plan Update, providing a savings clause, and providing an effective date." So I'll ask at this time if there's a motion to adopt.
If I may just make one
Certainly.
suggestion, would that be adopt the plan with the recommended revisions as per my memo of July? It's in there. Okay,
Okay.
I didn't hear him say that, I'm sorry.
It's in the resolution
Okay,
itself.
never mind, we're good then.
Certainly.
Sorry.
So, as I was saying, do we have a motion to adopt Resolution 2018-27 as has been proposed?
Motion.
Ms. Frescatore, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Crowley, is there any further discussion from the board? Any from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Well done.
Thank you. And thank you for all the time, effort, energy from all of you, the committee members, and your staff.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Judy.
We will go ahead and, I assume Judy will go ahead and process all the changes that are due for the comments received, and as soon as we get that document finalized, we'll post it up on the website and distribute it.
Right, we've actually made those changes already based on the memo. They're dated today. I will go through, do a final proofing of it, and you'll have that next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
And that'll close our hearing for this evening. Thank you.
Court reporter's done?
He is.
Okay.
We keep
Just want to make sure the court reporter's done.
Oh, you don't want this, okay? Better turn off
Okay.
YouTube while we're at it.
Next up on tonight's agenda is review 911 York Road sketch plan. The people from County Builders and their attorney Ed Murphy's here. I'll hand it right over to
Good evening,
Murphy.
thanks. Judy and I go to a lot of these meetings, and I confess that whenever I come and she's ahead of me, I groan.
I reminded her of that today.
Because she is always long, and I'm always impatient.
Mm-hmm.
But tonight, I'm glad she went ahead of me because the summary that she provided of your update to the comprehensive plan is a perfect segue into what we're going to talk about here tonight with regard to the sketch plan for 911 York Road, because it really highlights all the issues that Judy is requesting that you guys consider as you implement your comprehensive plan, which we'll talk about as we go through it. But, so that's the last time I want to go behind her, though. That's it. We're here tonight to present to you a sketch that we first introduced to the staff this spring. After the staff meeting, it was recommended that we meet first with your EDC and then with you folks before we took it any further. So after Mike Meister and Kevin Riley, the owners of County Builders, purchased the property in February, we met with staff in the spring, and then we met in May in June with the EDC, staff in May. And as a result of that favorable recommendation resulting from our meeting with the EDC, we're here tonight. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the property. It's about 11 acres. It has the address of 911 York Road. It is bounded on the north and to the west by places of worship, to the south by apartments and condominiums, and to the east, single-family residential. So from Judy's definition, the site has been vacant for a long time. It's a perfect infill spot, and it's 11 prime acres on a major arterial roadway running north and south through Warminster. And much like I've done over the last decade or more presenting other redevelopment projects to this board, it's a great opportunity, again, aside from everything that clients of mine have been doing on Jacksonville Road. It's another opportunity for a potential $40 to $50 million investment in Warminster by a combination of County Builders and Caddis Healthcare. What's on the screen is a suggested sketch plan for the redevelopment of the site for an assisted living facility, which consumes about half the site and which maintains most of the frontage on York Road. And then there is a 28-unit age-qualified townhome project that Mike and Kevin would sponsor. Caddis would be the developer of the assisted living facility. But again, as Judy's survey, as part of her comprehensive plan, suggested tonight, people in Warminster who grew up and live in Warminster want to stay in Warminster. This is a perfect example of the type of planning that I think would encourage that. Mike and Kevin, for all the activity they've already had in Warminster, have constantly been approached by folks that do you have any 55 and older places where we can downsize from a single-family home to a smaller unit? These units are designed for 55 and older. They are not market rate. They are age qualified, as we refer to them, townhomes. Obviously, I think you guys are all familiar with the structure of the assisted living facility. This particular facility, as designed by Caddis, contains a total of 156 units spread out between independent living, assisted living, and a small memory care unit. So it covers the whole spectrum of folks that have different housing needs, so that we have independent, age-qualified townhomes, and then the next movement in the spectrum to other independent type living. The plan, as we've discussed with your staff and the EDC, contemplates expanding the connectivity of sidewalks in the area that Judy mentioned. So there's an unbroken stretch of sidewalks that are not there, but we would be putting sidewalks in to connect to those communities immediately to the south and otherwise. And Kevin's highlighting on the screen where those sidewalks would go. Aside from, again, Judy mentioned the fact that you're not going to encourage necessarily in your comp plan retail. I think we all know retail, if it's not dead, it's on life support. This is an opportunity to redevelop the site for something that isn't retail and yet will produce a very dramatic rateable to the township, to the school district, and to the county if we move forward. Kevin had, and we'll do a slide at the end, but I'll just highlight as we go along here. Kevin had done an economic impact study that we had shared with your EDC back in June. Kevin's calculations suggest that probably 90 to 100 new permanent jobs will be created principally through the assisted living facility. There would be probably $2 million in one-time fees generated by virtue of the construction, permitting, and all that for both projects together. There is $125,000 surplus in taxes to the township, probably $400,000 to the school district, and plus or minus $60,000 to the county. So it's a revenue positive project with no dramatic demand on school age children and the cost of the school district. From that economic standpoint, it's a pretty dramatic positive thing, notwithstanding the fact that we have a $40 to $50 million injection of new real estate values to produce long-term in a consistent basis going forward. A little bit about Caddis. Caddis is a Dallas, Texas-based healthcare conglomerate that principally focuses on developing these types of communities throughout the southeast, and now they're migrating north. We had, late last night, we had received an approval in Lower Makefield to do a assisted living facility off of Dobry Road. You're much more pleasant to deal with, by the way. Just as an aside.
You haven't put your application in yet.
I still think so. But by midnight last night, we were okay. So, but we did receive an approval just about midnight last night for a preliminary plan approval for an assisted living facility. So that is Caddis's first foray into the Bucks County area. This would be the second project. This one, because it is available on a little bit more acreage, is slightly bigger than the one that was approved last night in Lower Makefield, but Kevin has some slides that we can run through quickly about, because there's been a lot of interest in elevations, what this property is going to look like when developed. And I should say, overarching all of this, and it's something we can work out with your solicitor, is that the site today is zoned R2. What we're proposing here does not comport with the R2 requirements. And at both the staff level and at the EDC, we talked about the need for providing some sort of zoning overlay or some type of mechanism to, assuming you would support it, to permit this approach. Again, something mentioned in Judy's comprehensive plan, that you need to be nimble, you need to be responsive to changing trends in the community for housing and other community needs. This is, again, a perfect example of what, if you support it, something that you would want to do to implement a comprehensive plan to take advantage of generating a use like this. In terms of transportation improvements, the other important thing is, and Kevin can comment later if we have the time, and that is the site's located at the signalized intersection at York and Norristown. Our intention as part of the plan would be to extend and create that fourth leg of that signalized intersection. That's not an insignificant assignment because of the stream that runs sort of, as Kevin is sort of southwest and northeast or something. But so it's going to require a fair amount of work and stormwater and culvert work in order to create that fourth leg. So it's an expensive undertaking, but one that's needed and would also help further manage the traffic along the corridor in that location. So, Kevin, if you want to move with the couple other slides we can show, give examples of the type of construction that Caddis is contemplating here. That is just a summary of what Caddis is, where how it operates, where it operates. They are entirely now an exclusive healthcare development company, if you will. So it's their principal business, and as I said, they are migrating along the Northeast Corridor. They're looking at other sites in suburban Washington, Baltimore, New Jersey, and 2 sites right now here in Southeast Pennsylvania. We've sort of talked quickly about the overview. You can see, if you can read it, down at the bottom, the breakout between independent living, assisted living, and memory care. It looks like 73 independent living units, a few less assisted living, and a fewer 24 units of memory care for the total of 156. That is a representative elevation of what the building might look like. There are other slides as well that show different types of elevations in different parts of the country that Caddis has proposed and implemented. It is a 4-story building.
Ed, can I stop you there?
Yeah.
The first slide had the whole entire, so will the whole entire building be 4-story?
No, I believe that the Caddis guys are here, and they can answer that, but I believe that to be the case, that it is not entirely 4 stories. Only the front portion of the building is 4 stories, and then it tiers down to 3 stories.
Width-wise. Width-wise, the entire thing would be 4 stories, right?
That's correct,
The
yes.
frontage along York
Right.
Road.
The
That was
frontage
my
along York
question as
Road,
well.
yes.
But then it tiers down in the rear.
Correct.
Want to go to the next slide, Kev? These are some other suggested or other elevations of other existing facilities that Caddis has developed. Hardis is their trade name, so this would be called Hardis. Hart is Warminster, if and when we get that far. So again, just sample elevations, and all of this we presented to the EDC as well, just to give them a flavor of what the building would look like. There was a question about the location of the building and its orientation to the roadway. And Kevin, if you go back to the site plan where we can show the portico share, you will see the element closest to the road is 75 feet from the edge of the cartway of York Road. It is 40 feet beyond the ultimate right-of-way of York Road. I think it's unlikely that York Road's going to be further widened in that location. So that portico share, though, that would be the element that would be closest. And we have a slide further back that also has another building layout that shows that same type of element in relation to an abutting roadway. But that's just to give you a flavor of next one, I think, Kevin. Next one. Yep. You can see the element out front and its relationship to the roadway there. So again, we don't think, given the arterial nature of York Road, that having the unit in that location is it doesn't make us uncomfortable, I would hope it wouldn't make anyone else uncomfortable about it, but.
And that York Road right-of-way is now 120 feet wide, so it's probably the largest right-of-way in Warminster Township, 120 feet is about as wide as PennDOT will go.
Right. There are some other shots of interiors. Eric Reiter, who is a senior executive with Caddis, is here this evening, and he can talk to you a little bit about the Caddis philosophy and how they try to identify their market niche and what their philosophy is. So we can talk about that in a minute, but you can see the level of finish that's in the public spaces that you're seeing on the screen, and that's, I think, typical of the unit that would be built here as well. And you can see in San Antonio and Peoria and Wisconsin and the other places where they're locating units, the interior finishes are at the upper end of the spectrum of those types of facilities. So.
And can I ask you to go back to the site plan again, Kev? I have one more question about the site.
I just want to take a minute to look at the
Okay. It's all right. Well, I'm sure it'll be beautiful. On York Road, so I see a second entrance
Right.
further south on York Road. Will there
Right.
be a decel lane to that entrance?
There would be, yes.
Okay, so, but the other one, you're just going to improve and redo that intersection?
Would that be full access then too?
So if we have positive feedback tonight, we'd like to engage a traffic engineer and invite the township to a pre-application meeting with PennDOT and present this plan to them and see exactly what they would want. But we do foresee decel lanes into both access points, more than likely.
If you don't have them on there, that was my question.
Right, yeah, we haven't gotten that far, and, PennDOT's gonna dictate to us what they're looking for, and I'd assume that the center areas now will turn to center left turn lanes, and that there will be a need for decel lanes into both access points. There might even need to be accel lanes as well, exiting out of those access points. But we'll have a meeting with PennDOT, and we'll get that figured out early on in the process.
And that'll be the lower one, Kat, that'll be a right out only, or is that going to be a right?
No, we would like for that to be full access. And if you're out there, we'll get a traffic study and look at the counts and everything, but we would absolutely like for that to be full access. We're going to have a reciprocal easement agreement between the two properties to share stormwater management and to share access, abilities to access the property. So the folks that live in the townhomes will be able to come through the signalized intersection and then come through the parking lot. And likewise, the folks that live or visiting the people in the assisted living can use this access point as well. We can absolutely have those conversations with both PennDOT and the township as we move forward.
If it's limited, if PennDOT comes back and says it's going to be limited to right in, right out, which you don't want, obviously, that's not a deal breaker? I mean,
no, that would not be a deal breaker.
Okay.
We would fight for it. We would fight for full
I figured
access.
that's why I asked.
Right, we would fight for full access. I think the only thing they could probably ever have a problem with is left out, because left in should be quite easy because you have the center left turn lane
Right,
already.
yeah, that's where you're going to have your issues. The left out.
Right.
Right.
So-
And now
But the key for Caddis and the desirability of the site, aside from the Warminster demographic, is the signalized intersection. So that is the critical thing, and creating that fourth leg is important.
All right, Kev, sorry to back you up there. I just had a couple.
Just in terms of traffic, real fast, and I think we all understand it, the average age of a Caddis resident is almost 85. And it's principally female, as we know, because they kill us and we don't live very.
Oh, man.
True. Politically incorrect, but true. So there's not going to be much of a traffic impact, obviously, from the assisted living
Yeah.
facility component.
I was telling Mr. Schuster recently, my brother runs an assisted living facility, and he said half of our residents drive and the other half shouldn't.
Exactly, right. So, obviously, as Kevin said, we'll commission a traffic impact study, and we'll go through the analysis with PennDOT, and then report back to you, and obviously Craig's office is going to be involved in all that as well. So, maybe, Eric, you want to take a seat at the table and just talk for a minute about your philosophy, how Caddis would operate the facility, and what your market is, why Warminster is attractive to you? Keep your voice up, because I'm used to you not talking loud. So.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate the time. Appreciate y'all reviewing the sketch plan today. But like I mentioned, I work for Caddis. We're 100% healthcare real estate firm, development firm, and under our senior brand Harvest, we do senior living development. And so the strategy that we have and the type of facility that we offer is it's a rental based community. It's not a buy-in type community, which there are some in this townships. We feel that having a rental option is something that would be needed in Warminster. The type of amenities and things like that we offer for our residents, we try to extend quality of life, activities of life, beyond whether they're in the memory care unit or that type of thing. It's not a place to go just to exist. We want to see our residents thrive. And so the reason that we like Warminster is there is a lot of potential residents and adult children that we've identified in excess of the supply that we see here. And something that's different about the type of community that we offer is we look to service the population within probably about a 3 or a 5 mile a radius. That's our primary market area, and that's what we're looking for. So some of the other buy-in communities and that type of thing are looking for destination type living, people who are looking to do those type of things. But we're looking to serve the community here, and like I said, and like the presentation earlier highlighted, it is an aging demographic here. We feel like we'd be a great service to the community. So.
There's definitely a need for it in our township, and there are a lot of elderly residents that are looking for a place like that. What's the affordability for somebody that's on a fixed income?
So as far as our strategy and kind of go-to-market strategy, we look at the rents in the market, and we try to offer kind of top-of-the-market amenities, but kind of a mid-range rental price. Or price point. So we're not an assisted, affordable. We don't take Medicaid or those type of things. It is private pay. Just to be clear, but we are looking to be right down the middle of the fairway as far as affordability, and we're not looking to be at the high end of the market.
Right. When we were at EDC, and we can be a little more impolitic than Eric can be, it's not as expensive as Ann's Choice.
Right.
So it would fill the space, sort of be that. I hate to, and I love Ann's Choice. Don't get me wrong. It's a great facility.
It's a great community.
It would sort of fill that tier, that the middle class,
Right.
sort of the hierarchy as it exists.
It's a beautiful facility, by the way.
Thank you. I
And I
appreciate
hope it all works out.
Thank you.
Do you have more to go on, or do you want the board to make some comments?
No, I
or-
think we covered pretty much the highlights, but we're happy to answer questions if anybody has any. Otherwise, I think at the end of the night, if you guys are supportive, we'd like you to direct your staff to work with us to develop the appropriate, whatever that vehicle is, overlay or some type of amendment in order to provide us with the opportunity to implement what you say. That's really where we're headed.
If you work out the Norristown Road situation with the light, that would be really crucial. I think that would really help.
Well, it's crucial to us, so
Good.
it's going to get worked.
Good, because it's crucial to us too. Thank you.
Right. No,
And
we
I-
share that concern, and it's important we get it done.
And I think traffic impact studies will be really important too, because I know that's the first thing that the public will
Yep.
come out with this. And stormwater retainage, which you've been down the road with us 100 times with it, so I don't have to tell you.
And you mentioned this before, but how many jobs are we talking about, ballpark?
90 to 100 is what, between Kevin and Eric, you've sort of determined.
That's correct, 90 to 100.
And these are nursing and
Yeah,
doctors.
exactly.
This isn't fast food. These are real jobs.
Well,
I don't mean to be disparaging, but I mean.
I'm glad your election is over.
I don't mean fast foods for high school kids. I mean real jobs for professionals.
Yeah, no, I mean to be
Working class hero. over here.
Sensitivity training for you.
You're turning red.
Both of you.
I mean, to be clear, it's not a nursing facility. It's not 100% nurses or things of that nature. But we do employ nurses. We do have a lot of staff, a lot of tech. I mean, it's a range. I mean, we do have full on-site dining. So I mean, we do have a full chef, full kitchen, that type of thing as well. But You know, it's majority of our staff are professional type people.
If I may, just can we draw the distinction? I know you mentioned it, but we talked a bit about DDC on how this is really, while there will be an easement between the two sites, they are two separate projects, and that the townhouses do not have a relationship directly with the
I'm
facility.
glad you brought that up because that's accurate, and Kevin, you can just elucidate on that for a moment.
That's correct. We would propose a subdivision of the property, basically in half, and Caddis would purchase this portion, build their facility, own and maintain their facility. Mike and I would build our facility, build our townhomes, and sell them market rate, age restricted, to the public. We will have reciprocal easement agreement. Like I said, it will allow us to share stormwater, allow us to share access points, allow us to share sidewalks, whatever else I'm missing, landscape maintenance. And we would also commit to building our site improvements at the same time that Caddis went in and built their site improvements. So all the site improvements will go in at one time. I really shouldn't speak to Caddis' construction schedule, but I'm sure it's much more or more than a year, or I would think. And we're going to be there for a couple years building and selling our 28 townhomes. But then they will be fee simple townhomes, just like any regular community. There will be an HOA, the road will remain private, and the HOA will own and maintain all of their open space. And the reciprocal easement agreement will then pass through to the HOA between the HOA and Caddis.
As part of the subdivision, then, there's going to be a mechanism to guard against the townhomes being built and then Caddis never moving forward, and there's a subdivision approved, and you have townhomes without the assisted living?
Sure, we can put those safeguards in.
I'm just the engineer, but
Right.
that's, you didn't, I didn't hear subdivision before until now, so that creates a different,
It's almost,
Ed's fully aware.
of the
You're
11
fully aware.
acres, Craig, it's about almost exactly even, about 5.5 acres that would belong to Caddis and 5.5 acres for the townhomes, but.
I'm the
yeah.
one that gets all when stuff's going to be built, and there's a lot of things that aren't being built right now just because I can't control it. But you mentioned about site improvements.
If you
and all
approve
that.
it, we will build it.
We will hire the same site contractor. There'll be one site contractor for the
We will
entire
build it.
job. So the entire site infrastructure is going to go in together. And Adam and Eric, every time we talk, every couple of weeks, they ask me if they can start within a couple of
Okay.
weeks.
I know.
So-
You know that, but there has to be, and that's
Right.
up to the solicitor's office to
These
make sure that
guys from
happens.
Texas have never seen the way approvals work up here. They've been flabbergasted by the process we've gone through in Lower Makefield already. And the 3.5-hour meeting we had last night, they've never seen a meeting that go that long.
I should have been here last month.
Well, and I told them, you guys are a lot better in Lower Makefield. So they are frustrated because they think it's taking a long time. But we're anxious to go as soon as, if and when this thing is permitted, we will build it.
We would hope, and it's just a hope, that we can all work together and we could break ground in the spring of 2019. That would be our hope.
Right.
I just want to make a couple comments. So just to give you how my mind was working, was my first concern was there was a property, kind of catty corner at that intersection there. Most people know it. So across the street.
Christ Home?
No, it's the old Klein House. So there was a developer that had come before us. They went before, not before us, I'm sorry. I believe it was before the zoning board. They wanted to build a whole bunch of townhome units. I think they were declined. So I mean, one of my concerns was how do you tell them no on one side and then yes on the other side? But the big difference, though, just to point that out, is the Klein property is completely surrounded by residential. So where you're building, there are I forget the name of it, the Brandywine Court to the south of the property.
The apartments and then the condos below that, right?
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I know there's some homes to the right, but there's a very small. I think there's only a couple homes there that would abut that. But I don't know what's happening with that property, but I do know that there was an issue with respect to traffic and getting out to that intersection and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if that's if we can kind of compare notes, since we're looking at doing something significant to that intersection.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can problem solve two different issues.
Sure. Norristown Road is also a state road, so that also falls under PennDOT jurisdiction, I believe. So if they want to come in with us for a meeting, that would be fine. We're right at the signal, so I think our pre-application meeting is going to be pretty straightforward. I think PennDOT's going to know what they want. They might not even give us a pre-application meeting. They might just send us an email saying, this is what we want, and if you have any problems, let us know, because that happens on some of these projects.
And just so you're aware, that project was then approved for 7 single-family homes.
Right.
November of last year, so they have conditional final approval. They haven't come back in to clean up stuff yet and get going, so I'm not sure where they stand with PennDOT yet.
Okay. But if they are moving forward on something, it probably
Yeah.
would make sense to get into the same room.
Absolutely.
Anyone else have any?
Anybody else?
Anyone from the public have any comments, questions?
Sure, since I'm here and
Come on up,
it was
Darlene.
such a long, very long. I'm looking at the plan and I'm all for development and it looks cool because I'm getting at that age, I want a facility like this. But I look at that 28 units there. It looks like a lot, and we just heard about a lot of getting more green space in there. So I don't know what our zoning is, and I'm certainly not an expert in that. So that's my comment. It just looks like the 28 units is a lot. Sorry, guys.
So with the 28, that because we're in an assisted living facility adjacent to, we are targeting that to be age restricted. Someone in the house has to be 55, and no one can be under the age of 18. So we thought that was much less impact to the township. Really dovetails nicely with the assisted living facility. The folks that perhaps live in their really nice single-family home and they're aging out of that, they have something that they can come into with full amenities, no maintenance required. Those homes are also proposed to be only 2 stories tall. 2 stories tall with the master bedroom on the ground floor, and very likely to be slab on grade. Not sure about that, but very likely to be slab on grade. I'm not sure if these homeowners are going to want a basement. So we tried to lessen the impact.
Do you own that, like everything that's kind of cut out there, is that the exact acreage that you own, or
Yes.
is there anything else?
That's it.
So that
That's it.
green wooded area there, that wouldn't be owned by?
That's correct.
That's
You
correct.
guys, okay. There's a lot of existing mature trees. This is where the tree guy comes into effect. I know it looks like it'd be very difficult to save any of them. I know usually when you develop a property like this, you just kind of start from scratch.
That would be the plan, but
Yeah.
we do know that there are rules and there's fee in lieu of tree disturbance, and also we would fully participate in a full re-landscaping of the entire property especially along the frontage of York Road and all of our buffers in order to respect our existing neighbors.
Thank you.
And if nobody has anything else, I mean, it appears to me that the board's in favor of having the applicant move forward with this. I mean, I know I am. I think it's a terrific use for the property. It's low traffic impact, and it's going to provide a nice service for our residents. I'm a little concerned about the folks coming from Dallas. I don't know if they're Dallas Cowboy fans. Have a little concern about that. Not the county builders side.
I'm not going to sit next to him, Mark.
Tell them to leave their Cowboys hard hats at home.
Well, if the consensus of the board is to move forward, then if there's no objection, we'll work with the developers, establish the appropriate agreements in escrow, and start the
Right.
process. Again, this would be contrary to the current zoning. We'd have to work together with staff and the developer to develop what we think is the appropriate way to bring this forward, which may be an overlay, and bring that to you for your consideration.
Agreed. Good.
And why the fellows from County Builders are here, I want to thank you again for your sponsorship for Warminster Day. And, the public doesn't know this, but every year County Builders sponsors the Warminster Rotary Club Charity Ball, in which we raise a lot of money for local families. And anytime we go to County Builders and say, hey, can you sponsor this, can you sponsor that, they do without question. And you've been a very good partner here in Warminster with your developments. And in fact, we're just getting ready to do our park work, and due to your developments and your contributions, you're basically paying for the baseball quadrant that's being put into our community park, which is going to be underway this year. So while you're in the room, I wanted to thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Wayne. Okay, next up is item C, consider adoption of ordinance 747, amended Ann's Choice Street Lighting District Ordinance. Mr. Wirt?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. As you mentioned, it's proposed ordinance 747. The description is an ordinance amending section 21-606, which is the street lighting district section of chapter 21, part 6, streets and sidewalks / street lighting districts and assessment of the township's code, creating a new street lighting district within the township entitled Veterans Way / Veterans Circle, and setting forth the specific parcels contained within the new district. This was advertised for adoption, consideration for adoption on Monday, July 9th. And I guess I'll ask if there's any questions from the board.
No, I'll ask for a motion.
There you go. I will ask if there's a motion to adopt the ordinance 747 as presented.
Motion.
Mr. Monroe, second.
Second?
Ms. Frescatore, any questions from the board, comments from the board? Any from the public? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Motion carries. Next up is item D, authorized to advertise zoning ordinance amendment. Mr. Wirt?
Yes, this is also an amendment to Township Code. This is amending section 272301. What's been drafted is to amend and restate the definition of computer-controlled electronic display. And this does two things. It would reduce the permitted interval of message changes. Currently, it's 30 seconds in the code, reducing it to 8 seconds. And it removes the minimum character size in the computer-controlled electronic displays. I'd like to make clear that we're not changing anything in the code as to where this type of display is allowed or not. That's going to stay the same. The only change that's anticipated in this ordinance when it's advertised is those two things, changing the minimum interval between message changes and the minimum character size. So with that described, I will ask if there's a motion to authorize advertisement of the proposed ordinance.
There a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Crowley, second. Mr. McPhillips, any further questions or comments from the board? And this is strictly for advertisement.
Yeah, I just again, what does this affect as of right now?
This would affect any digital billboard or any future digital billboard which could be allowed pursuant to our ordinances.
Okay, and where are they allowed as of right now?
Very few places. I don't know off the top of my head, but I actually believe I saw a picture one time of the locations. They're all along street.
Okay.
Those are the only locations, and there's not a lot of locations.
Right. So I'm trying to rack my brain to think about where are there any digital signs. I know of one little one. But
I think it's mostly in the commercial districts. So you see like the dentist on York Road has the digital signs, that type of thing too, as well, in addition to like the larger billboards. But right now that's what we're seeing is the smaller business signs.
But it's also for existing billboards, which are currently not digital, that may want to convert to digital. This would have an impact on that.
Is this going to allow, does it affect the size of the digital?
This is not changing anything other than the two aspects that Mr. Ward talked about. Namely, the regulation, the ordinance right now says that the interval between messages, it has to be 30 seconds, which is an incredibly long time. The state standard is 8 seconds, so we're aligning with the state standard there. And the second thing is there's a requirement on the size of the lettering. Presumably, you don't want people squinting as they're driving by. But the lettering was pretty tall. I forgot the exact dimensions that was currently in there. And quite frankly, the owner of the billboard has a self-interest in making sure that the people driving by can see it. So it's not really much of an issue.
So it won't open the door for big electronic signs?
The door is already open. You know, all this would do is change, this would not encourage or prevent any digital sign from coming. It would only impact a sign that's already allowed under our ordinances.
Okay.
It's kind of like having an outdated building code and you're not keeping up with new materials and new technology, and that's what we're hearing. I mean, this has happened in other townships too, where you know it's kind of an outdated ordinance that needs to be cleaned up and brought into code and compliance.
What's the the time allowance for some of the surrounding, I know what the state code is, but what's some of the surrounding communities? What is that
Typically, I've seen 8 seconds.
typically in
Yeah.
some of the surrounding townships?
Yeah, I dealt with this up in Pocono Township and when I was there previously. And same issue, we dropped it from 30 down to 8 as well to conform with the state.
That's pretty standard.
There is a motion and a second. Are there any other comments? Any from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
The chair votes aye.
I'm going to vote no.
Opposed?
I'm going to vote no.
I'll vote no also.
Okay. Motion carries 3-2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Advertise.
Thank you.
Next up is public comment. Township residents have the opportunity at this time to comment on any non-agenda items subject to the 5-minute guideline as recognized by the chair. Is there any public comment? Darlene, I knew you weren't here to say hello.
Darlene Baker, 1537 Mulberry Circle, Friends of Warminster Parks. So I wanted to remind everybody of a couple of upcoming events that we're having. On August 25th, we're having our community yard sale. So make sure you tell all your friends and neighbors to clean out their attics and their basements and come on over and sell your stuff to other people who want to fill up their attics and basements. The spaces are $25 for a 20 by 20 area, and that allows you to drive your car and leave your car right there. So that's one of the benefits of our yard sale, because it's out on the runway at Warminster Community Park. So one of the things I'm going to ask all the supervisors to do is to make sure that you click on the Facebook page of Warminster. Hold on, let me get it up so I can tell you exactly which one it is. It is Warminster Parks and Recreation Friends, and our events are all out there. So if you would click on the different events, you can say interested, and then you can share them on your Facebook page for all those that are out on Facebook, and we would really appreciate it. It helps us with advertising for those type of events. I know I've talked about our other upcoming event, which is their casino night on Saturday, October 20th. And since there isn't a big public here, I won't go into all the details. It's a real fun event, and we're really trying to raise money for the splash park that you guys all know about it. It's part of the grant. The splash park is going to be built by the grant, but we're raising money for all the amenities around it, including the sunshades, the benches, the retaining walls, whatever else needs to be built around it. So we're trying to raise $45,000. We have a PayPal account. We've got some activity and a little bit of money in that account, and we're looking for more. One of the things that I'm going to need the supervisor help at is next meeting, I'm going to have tickets, and I'm going to ask you to all help us sell tickets to the events. But one of the other things that we're doing differently this year, and I alluded to it, I think, at previous meetings, is that we're having some really cool, once-in-a-lifetime silent auction trips. And I have a write-up for you all that I'll hand out to you. It has the splash park on one side and has the trips that we're doing on the other side, and we're really starting to advertise the trips. But I wanted to spend a few minutes and let you know what those trips that we're going to be auctioning out and just encourage people who might be interested in these once-in-a-lifetime trips to come and bid on some of these auction items. The first is a trip to Sonoma, California to do a wine tour. It's a 4-day and 3 nights at the Fairmont Sonoma Mission Inn and Spa. And there will be a private winery tour with a chauffeured limousine. So, this organization that we're doing this through, I've used personally. I took 2 trips from a different auction item, and they did a phenomenal job. So I really thought they did a really nice job with the trips. So the first one is the wine tour. So tell all your friends and family that these are going to be out for bid. The next is a land-only trip to Boston, Massachusetts, and it's 3 days and 2 nights at the Fairmont Copley Plaza for 2, including a 2-day Go Boston card, and the Go Boston card allows you into a lot of facilities in those 2 days. And there's a whole list, I think, of 70 different items, you know, that you can participate in when you're in. And Boston's one of my favorite cities. It's just a fun city. This one is definitely once in a lifetime. It's for the U.S. Open Golf Tournament in June of 2019. There's a 2-day trophy club passes to any 2 days of the U.S. Open in Pebble Beach. So I think that might be a really interesting event that somebody might like to go to. The fourth one is an Alaskan cruise, and it's a 7-night in Alaska. I have personally not been to Alaska or done any of the cruises, but any of my friends or family that have done the Alaska cruise say it's definitely on the bucket list. So I think that would be kind of interesting, to the Alaska cruise. And then, of course, with casino night, you also have to have a Las Vegas trip in here. And there's a 4-day, 3-night at the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. It includes airfare and a $250 gift card towards dinner at Naboo or Emerald's New Orleans Fish House or Fleming Steakhouse. So personally, when I went on a casino trip that I bid for a long time ago, wasn't sure how I was going to tell my husband that I bid on a trip to Las Vegas. So I came up with a good plan that we were going to do the Las Vegas trip in February. So we would do half a week in Las Vegas and half a week skiing at Squaw Valley. I almost died when I went into Squaw Valley and saw all the cliffs drive in. But we actually did that, and that was a really nice trip for us. And then my personal favorite, the last one, is Zulu Nyala Safari Adventure. This is a trip that I purchased at a previous charity auction, and for my husband and I, it was a trip of a lifetime. It was 7 days. We did 2 safaris a day. All the meals were included, drinks were separate, but we had a wonderful time. We also extended our trip past the safari and did other things, but it was an amazing trip, and I'm going to let everybody know that they can contact Dave or I to find out more about that. But so these are the things that we're going to auction off. The minimum bids are on the paper here. Our website will be updated by Monday with all the details, not just the summaries that I just read off to you, but with the details of each of the trips that are going to be involved. So again, I encourage you to share our friends page. We'll have on the casino night, we'll have a link to the website that'll give all the details of all the trips. And if I could ask your help to really get the word out that these are going to be auction items, and it'll really help raise money for the Splash Park.
Awesome. Thank you, Darlene. I look forward to the casino night. It's a good time. Yeah, it's a good time. While Darlene's doing that, is there any other public comment? Any? Come on up, hon. Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll take one. Here, you can. Okay. Again, Ken Hayes, 850 Lingo Drive. I just wanted, I'll be real brief. I just wanted to give you guys a little update on some of the committees that I'm on. For one, the Budget Committee, we did not have a meeting this month. We hit a couple unforeseen issues, so I don't have anything to report on that, but our August 7th meeting we plan to have, and at that point I will probably provide you with some sort of written letter as to where we are with progress. The other thing I wanted to mention was, you know, I'm grateful to be the chair of the Environmental Advisory Council, and one of the reasons why I accepted the position was to help the residents and this community become more aware of environmental issues, to educate them on some of the misconceptions. And I'm very happy to share an email that was forwarded to me by Mr. Schuster from Hannah Ainsworth. She's a science teacher, and she's she's teaching a summer science class, and she had all her younger students go out on the internet and look for environmental programs and information, and one of the places that they landed was on the Warminster webpage. So she wrote us a wonderful email about all the different information that's on there and links to different sites. She thought it was a great resource. She gave us kudos. So I want to thank the members of the EAC for developing that and putting those links out there for us, and all the hard work that they put into the review of the different documents that we presented tonight. And the other thing is, for the EAC, we're going to have 2 additional environmental education series lectures or presentations this fall. One of them will be water resources. We're developing that, basically where we get our water from, groundwater flow, a quick understanding or a presentation on how water flows underground, how we capture that water, and also some of the water chemistry and the issues in our groundwater. The other presentation we have not determined yet. So that's about it, and thanks to the EAC members.
You and your team are doing a phenomenal job, and we're very happy with all the incentives that you're doing around the township. Thank
Great.
you.
Ken, how do you find that, the site for that? Do you know?
Oh, it's right on our township page. I think it's under environmental. Yeah, and I would encourage all the residents to go on our township webpage and go to the environmental tab, I guess, if you will, and see what we have there. There's a plethora of information and interesting links and the like. So, thanks again.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. Darlene, I thought you had some more.
No, I'm just getting my stuff.
Any more public comment before we move on? Okay, move on to consent agenda. Mr. Schuster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight's consent agenda is as follows. Item A is approval of your minutes for your June 21st meeting. Item B is the award for the bid award for unleaded regular gasoline and ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel for 2018 and 2019 as bid through the consortium. These are the low bidders. Item C is the final escrow release for Police and Fire Federal Credit Union in the amount of $5,594.79 plus any accrued interest. Item D is 273 West County Line Road, Sowers property, final escrow release in the amount of $12,221.16 plus any accrued interest from Legal and Engineering. Item E is Fulton Bank / Starbucks final escrow release and the amount of $405.16 plus any accrued interest from the legal and engineering escrow, and in the amount of $20,000 plus any accrued interest in the construction escrow account. Item F is Longstreth, release number 2 from escrow in the amount of $63,247.50 as recommended by the engineer. Item G is payment number 2 for the curb ramp installation as part of the 2018 road program to Associated Paving Contractors in the amount of $74,718.97 as recommended by the engineer. And item H is payment number 2, final, for the 2018 road program to Gray Brothers in the amount of $72,199.58, contingent upon receipt of closeout documents and completion of any outstanding punch list items to the satisfaction of the Township's Public Works Director.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion.
Mr. Monroe, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. McPhillips, any discussion on the motion?
Item F, the Longstreth property. Ballards on the emergency road, when are they going to be installed? Is it a time frame when?
On the what?
Bollards.
the emergency access?
The emergency exit road, people are driving up and down that emergency
I'll
road.
follow up with Kevin, but I did ask him about it, and he did talk to the contractor about putting them in, but I don't have an actual timeline from him yet as to when they're going in.
So we receive complaints?
Dan asked me about it before.
Okay.
So, but I have talked to Kevin about
That
it.
should be done, yeah.
Okay.
I'll follow up too.
Okay, cool.
Any other question or comment on consent agenda? Any from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the chair votes aye. Motion carries. Next up is finance report. Mr. Schuster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the agenda, you have the June transfers. You have a supplemental bill list dated June 28th, 2018, and the amount of $381,041.93, and a bill list dated July 19th, 2018, and the amount of $1,378,281.84. And I would ask for a motion to approve all three.
Is there a motion?
Motion?
Ms. Frescatore, second.
Second.
Mr. Crowley, any discussion on the motion? The board, any from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Motion carries. Next up is item B, June financial statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are no significant updates as regards to our finances. We are still tracking generally to our budget. At this moment, as I said last month, I don't see anything that would prevent a sizable deficit from being realized this year. I don't believe it's going to be the $1.6 million that's been budgeted, but I do believe it would be significant. On the plus side, we are seeing better results with the golf course due to the improved weather over the last month or so.
Okay. Anyone have anything for Mr. Schuster on the financial statement? I guess as we get further into late summer and September, you'll really be able to drill down on where we are. I mean, you see the way things are trending.
Yeah, the expenditures, I'm not seeing much variation. I see savings in certain areas. The wild card has always been the revenues. Since we don't have any incredibly large projects that we feel are going to kick off over the next couple months to bring in additional permit fees, I don't think that we're going to see anything which is going to save us from a sizable deficit. I will say, though, that the permit fees, the building permit fees, are tracking ahead of budget. I think we've collected 70% of where we should be by now. So we are doing fairly well there, but I'm not seeing anything large that's going to occur this year, which is going to bring in a substantial amount of revenue that would help close that deficit.
And I know we're meeting first week of August instead of third week, so I guess as we get into September, we'll be into next year's budget. I mean, basically,
yes.
we'll be into 2019.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Does anyone have anything else on this statement? Okay. We don't have any unfinished business tonight. We have some new business. Consider approval of Resolution 2018-28, designation of funds in association with the land development of 1270 Mearns Road. Mr. Schuster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you recall, last meeting, you did give a preliminary and final approval to the Doucher's Farm development. As part of that approval, $200,000 worth of fees were to be collected for improvement of the intersection there. There was concern raised by board members wanting to make sure that that money was not spent in other areas. My request, the finance director put together this resolution, which would take the $200,000 as received, place it into the Highway Traffic Improvement Fund as assigned fund balance. By doing that, you would keep it out of the general fund, and by putting that assigned label on it, you would be preventing it from being spent on anything other than the intended purpose, which is the improvement of that intersection.
Excellent. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion.
Ms. Frescatore, second. Mr. Monroe? Second. Any further discussion?
So the assignment of funds would also include the acquisition of any land, should that be the way we decide to go down the road, if we try to acquire property in order to fix the...
Correct.
So
Those
it's
funds could
not-
be used for that purpose.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Okay. Motion second. Any further discussion? Any from the public? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Okay, next up is professionals' reports. Township Manager, Mr. Schuster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have my written report in case you have any questions. As the board is aware, last week we received notification that we are receiving a Green Light Go grant in the amount of $226,000. Said I wanted to thank Gilmore for all their hard work, as well as Pete Carter and our staff for putting that together. That will be for signal improvements, traffic signal improvements on Street Road at a number of intersections that will improve the detection equipment there. So we look forward to getting going on that project. Next week, on the 25th, I will be attending an EPA meeting that's been well publicized as part of a listening tour that EPA is conducting. I have a conference call tomorrow to discuss the preliminary agenda, but I do expect to spend quite a bit of time at the location. I believe it's in Horsham. On the 25th. I encourage anyone who has feedback for the EPA to attend the meeting. It is open to the public. The public's encouraged to attend and provide any feedback. I will be coordinating with Mr. Hagee on any messages that we want to make sure we get out, but I don't expect that it'll be any different than what we've been saying, that we expect that the polluters, which in this case is the federal government, to work with the authority and provide filters on those wells and provide any remuneration as needed. The road program is just about, did you have a question, Dan? I'm sorry, I saw your finger go up there. I thought you were saying, wait a second. Sorry. Sorry.
Dan wants to go home.
Sorry. The road program is just about complete. All the paving and curb ramps are complete. For those of you that have been calling and questioning, yes, we're aware that there's a small portion on Windmill that hasn't been fully paved yet. That's because the authority is doing a paving project in Oakwood, and we don't want to go ahead and pave that just to have all their trucks drive over it and interfere with what they're doing. So the Public Works will return to that one spot. Right now, they're switching over to sinkholes and potholes. They will also be sealing the newly paved roads next month.
Yeah, kudos to Eric and company. You know, here again, we're in mid-July and the road program's complete. Kudos. I mean, I know a few short years ago, we were in November and still paving roads. So.
And just to update, I may have outdated information. I was told 2 curb ramps, there were still some issues with utility conflicts that may have been resolved. So that's why it wasn't closeout documents for tonight. Just the final paving.
Eric told me today that everything was all
okay.
done, so
good. So
I'm sure it'll be in the next meeting.
Because someone usually says, "Hey, you missed a ramp, you missed a section." So
I'd also like to point out that although we're done, there's still some paving going on there with the authority. I believe their contract is going to run July 30th through mid-August, doing milling and paving in the roads that they tore up to go ahead and install new mains. So if you see those roads out there, no one forgot about them. It's just the authority will get to them next month.
And this should free us up to do some supplemental paving on some of our properties, as we've been doing the last few years.
I'm not sure if we'll have the budget to go ahead and do that. Right. But we'll always examine that. But funds are limited in the liquid fuels account.
Okay.
I'd like to give a big thank you to Eric Hines and his team, because
doing a great
I've been
job.
driving around the township and I'm phenomenal. Night and day since he came on board. It's amazing, and they deserve a big thank you
Him
from
and the
all of
entire
us.
crew do a fantastic job, and I would like to point out many of the days that they worked were some of the hottest days that we've seen over the last few weeks.
You know, George's Lane, Sandy, Lavera, that's all, you know, my back neighborhood. And it went from looked like they were testing missiles to smooth as a baby's butt. It really is phenomenal. So they did a great job.
And we appreciate everyone's patience. You know, it's a little disconcerting to some residents when they see the milling occur and then nothing happens. They're wondering what's going on. But that's the way we're set up. The contractor comes in, does the milling very quickly, and then it takes our guys weeks to go ahead and complete all the paving. So I appreciate everyone's patience and understanding while we get that all done.
Okay. Anyone else have anything for Mr. Schuster?
Couple questions, things have popped up. if I read our ordinance, which everybody can, ordinances correctly, and which everybody can do if they go online, and you could read them, so you don't have to send us messages at midnight asking about this. What is our ordinance around parking recreational vehicles on township roads, on township streets?
As far as I know, and the chief can correct me if I'm wrong, there's nothing in our ordinance that's covered under the state motor vehicle code, and if it's a registered motor vehicle,
Right.
it is allowed. Am I incorrect?
Has to be inspected, has to be registered, be parked on a common law street.
Okay, that's terrific. I didn't know how to answer
You
it.
could have a quad that has a registration tag on it, inspected, it's legal. Trailer, same thing, boats, same thing.
If you have 5 cars for one house, you can park all 5 of them on the street?
Commonwealth, you pay taxes when you buy gas.
Yep.
Nothing we can do about it.
Okay.
All right. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to give out the wrong information to folks.
Nope.
And another one that was kind of outside my purview, in Warminster Heights, are the streets privately owned or are they owned by us?
Those streets are ours.
Ours,
And we took
okay.
them a few years ago.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was part of a court stipulation going back 20 years, I think.
Yeah,
It's
and
going
we
back-
finally just took them a few years ago. Craig, you were here.
All right, no, again, it was just something I wanted to
The Leo
clarify.
Quinch, infamous $20
We're responsible for the roads and and also the curbing.
Yeah,
For
I'm
the
aware of the
stipulation.
curbing. I wasn't sure if the stipulation was a remnant of the agreement, but now we have responsibility for everything there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you, that answers my question.
Anyone have anything else for Mr. Schuster? Okay, next up is Solicitor's Report. Mr. Wirt.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we've submitted our written monthly report also, and frankly, many of the items have been discussed tonight in one form or another, but certainly answer any questions that you have.
Thanks for sitting in tonight. Did a wonderful job.
Thank you for having me.
You come back
There's,
anytime.
there is a question that I was asked, and when we did a recent change to the ordinance to allow the agreement with Greg, in terms of your
Are you talking about the defined contribution?
contribution, immediate vesting.
Yes.
The way the ordinance is written, that only applies to the township mayor position. Does that apply to any other position within the township?
The only, and this is going from memory, so I'll try to get as close as I can. My memory is that the only immediate vesting is township manager.
Yeah.
We adjusted the vesting schedules for a good number of
Right.
types of employees, but the only immediate vesting is the township manager.
All right, thank you very much.
And just if I might add, that was consistent with what was going on previously. It was just changing the ordinance allowed me to participate in the township plan,
Right.
which by participating in the township plan, you get state reimbursement.
Yeah.
So I'll make sure we're,
Oh, yeah,
Get the
Greg,
reimbursement.
I wanted you to get vested, don't worry. It wasn't that, I guess I was asked the question was, now, can anybody in the township have that? And I did not want to answer that without.
No.
So
No.
the way the ordinance is written, it applies to that one position at this time.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay. Nothing else for a solicitor. Next up is Engineers Report. Mr. Kennard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have our July report. I have 3 things to discuss. One is O'Neill Buick has come in for a waiver of land development for expansion of their parking area. They're actually going to make stormwater amenities or additions as well and modifications. It's simply for their parking for the storage of vehicles. So we see this quite a bit. Staff had discussed it, and you'll see that at your meeting in August, at your August 2nd meeting. We also have another waiver of land development you'll see in August. Christ Home is a very small maintenance building. It's 3,800 square feet with 8 parking spaces. That also qualify for waiver of land development. Staff discussed that. We'll have that review done and ready for you for your next meeting on August 2nd. Planning Commission will be looking at, and I haven't seen the plan yet, so I can't answer any questions. Was it Patagon Self-Storage? Over on West County Line Road, 270, it says west. Okay, sorry. 273 East County Line Road for construction of a 12,000 square foot and 29,000 square foot buildings, 45 parking spaces. That's for indoor self-storage. I haven't seen those plans yet. That'll be at Planning Commission after your board meeting, so you might see that in September if that all goes well. And then one other project that everybody knows about, the Hart School Project is going to be wrapping up, I'm going to say, over the next 9 months to a year, hopefully sooner. But Amanda and I had a very productive meeting with the HOA president and their management company was it this week? Last week, time flies. I promised that I would come in and kind of help educate them. Anytime there's a new HOA, it was going to happen in all the developments. I've been through it many a times, know the frustrations at the township level and at the new community HOA level where they don't realize what they got themselves into, especially the HOA representative. So turns out I actually knew the president from past days, way back. We used to play hockey together. So he's still learning a lot. I thought it went very well to help just educate where they're at and where we're going to go. Obviously, there's always frustration with the builder completing projects, getting in there and fixing everything, and it just takes a while. I know it does. You guys are fully aware that the end of the punch list process can take quite a while. So they're already organized and ready to go. We haven't even done final paving of the road yet. So
How's the basins functioning over there?
they just converted everything. So yes,
I know there were some issues with
yes.
that.
The HOA did have an engineer's report, so that's common. I have a copy of it. A staff looked at that. Probably was premature when it was done, but so some things are being ticked off already. It'll help the developer. Hopefully they work with the HOA on that. And then, as you know, I'll come in and be the arbiter and the police, and I'll have to settle things at the very end and decide what should be done and what shouldn't be done. So I thought it was a very productive meeting, and we'll do that on the other projects as well as they get closer. And I think it shows that the township staff's there, and we're here to listen and try to educate the staff a little bit with the HOA.
And I just want to, again, thank you, Craig, and you, Amanda, for the job that you guys did with respect to the HOA over there. And the gentleman that you had sat down with. Obviously, at the last township meeting, I talked about the sign. I showed everyone the picture of the sign and the potential rift that could have been created, not in just my neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods, but what the other developments are as well. And the fact that he had taken that sign down, after he spoke to you guys, is a great sign of being a good neighbor. And
Amanda just wanted me to remind everybody that won't happen with the other projects. That it was a last minute change on where that tot lot went. It's not in the open space, and also I think the agreements cover that. We took care of that on the other projects, and then the last one doesn't have a tot lot, the Dowser's Farm. So
okay.
And it's just an educational thing about the HOA residents. They hear private community. They think everything's private.
Right.
All of a sudden you have trail easements. They don't understand. They don't look at the site plan. They don't understand there's trails connecting other developments, and they think they're a little gated community. So it's just an educational process. But they were very cooperative. That was down within a day or two,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that they. I promised I would work with them a little bit more, hold their hand a little bit, just to if they could work with us on what was causing some problems.
Yeah, I'll have to walk over and say thank you to him as well. I haven't been able to do that yet, but it really is. It's a huge burden that's been lifted off my shoulders because of the work that you guys did. I already spoke to a couple of my neighbors who had complained to me, and I mean, everyone's very happy now. So it's that. So that's been, like I said, that's fantastic.
I just said, listen to me, where I'm going to have Amanda take over, and she said, fine, done. So no, it went well.
Other couple questions?
Sure.
Steak and Shake. I know we're getting close, right?
Yes, we. Oh, yes, we are. We had quite a few emails today again.
Is there going to be a ribbon cutting?
How close?
I want to go to that.
Me too.
Yeah, fall.
End of
yeah.
September,
It's
looks like to me.
Yeah, it's not ready yet. No, it's
Okay.
again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get our helmets and our.
And I see they're moving again with
Scissors.
the car wash finally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A what?
They were just waiting for their contractors to finish up other jobs, so now they're ready to start going in that site as well.
And I heard a rumor that Rosemore Donuts was going to refund their escrow. I heard a rumor.
We're still in rumor mode on that one.
All right.
I've had many talks with their attorney, and we've got no check yet, so
Not making
it's
my
still a
I ran
rumor.
into their attorney in Wegmans last week, and that was the first
Oh, he's still telling
question
you?
I had for him.
Yeah, well, I've talked to him many times, and he's told me many times the check was coming, but it has not.
That's what he told me too.
And without specifying any large vacant complexes, is there any updates?
No, in fact, I was going to kind of just summarize what Greg had, or echoed what Greg said. There's nothing. There's no large. I mean, things have kind of it's fine too. We're trying to wrap up some other large projects from last year. I've noticed, I keep an eye on everything, so does Amanda and Greg, and I can't say anything's going to pop up here over the next few months. In fact, I anticipate a fall kind of, depending on how the winter is, it'll probably slow down towards we get to fall, just based on what's coming out.
Do we expect legal to resubmit this fall?
When I talked to them last week, they said they'd be resubmitting within the next few weeks with their revised plans.
They're ready to, on our end, we can get them going right away. Like,
We gotta go through PennDOT again. That's take some time.
Okay.
that's all I have.
Anything else from Mr. Kennert? Thank you, Mr. Kennert. Next up is our second round of public comment. Is there any other public comment? Not you.
Skip me.
Oh, I skipped you, Township Manager. Oh, I'm sorry, announcement of upcoming agenda items. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the next meeting, for next month, we're doing a little bit of a switch. We will be meeting the first Thursday and not the third Thursday. So we will be meeting August 2nd and not August 16th. As Mr. Kennard mentioned, we'll have two land development waivers on the agenda. The Bucks County Municipal Waste Plan will be before you for your consideration. And the auditors who have finalized in the 2017 audit will be here to answer any questions that you or the public may have.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Now back to where I was, public comment, second round of public comment. Okay, seeing none. Awesome. Okay, finally, there's a supervisor's comment. Ms. Frescatore, please.
I just want to thank all of our staff here tonight, fellow supervisors, for a really productive meeting, and a big thanks to the EAC. It looks like you're involved in lots of projects, keep you busy, and we certainly appreciate all the good work that you're doing. Also the road crew, and got to thank our police department, number one. Thank you very much. And that's it for tonight, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Monroe.
Said everything I wanted to say, so
Awesome.
thank you very much.
Mr. McPhillips.
Kathy's always thanking everyone, but I want to thank you for your leadership on the comprehensive plan, and Jason too. Job well done.
Thanks.
You did a good job.
Well done.
Thank you.
I'm going to keep it short. I want to thank the fellow board members for approving the comprehensive plan. I want to thank Kathy for her work on the plan and her passion behind it. It helped inspire a lot of people. So tip of the hat to you, Kathy. Well done. And I want to thank the board members, one of who stayed throughout the whole meeting. Mr. Warner, thank you. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay. I don't have much, just to tell everyone to continue to enjoy their summer, be safe. And one thing I do want to talk about at the next meeting, and I wrote a note of it, is fireworks. I mean, I know I'm not the only board member whose phone is ringing off the hook with these fireworks. And it's not our doing, it's the state. By opening that floodgate, it's making more work for the chief, because I'm sure your phone's ringing every night. I know it's out of our hands, but I think we should prepare some type of resolution to send to our state representative and state senator. Because they just opened the floodgates with these fireworks, and it's left for us to deal with. I'm sure every one of you, your phone's ringing around the clock, because mine is.
I'm on the phone with Mr. McKee. You live on one side of the township, I live on the other. And I'm on the phone, and I can hear the fireworks on the phone that you're saying. And you can hear the fireworks on mine in the
Went out to
township.
Monty's, people telling me, there's bottle rockets landing on my roof. I'm afraid my house is going to burn.
Yeah, it's
It's
pretty
great.
bad.
Come on up, chief. I know you're getting.
Resolution's minor. It's $100 fine. That's it. It's if we find him. That's if we find a person lighting them off, how we let them off.
Exactly, but I mean,
$100 ticket, and we got, people are screaming to lock them up. Can't lock them up.
but the state has allowed the sale of these.
Yes.
The state has allowed the sale of these, and it's crazy. I don't understand what they're thinking. Because you want to see fireworks, get down a ball game. True. But anyway,
Well, maybe we should, Warrington pulled a nice little trick the other day. They put out a thing on Facebook saying, this is what you should do. It's basically the statute, saying that it's a $100 fine, call the cops.
Wow.
If people have a noise ordinance, what should they do? Should they call the non-emergency number? If they're, I don't want to encourage a rash of complaints, but if they're being disturbed by the fireworks, what is the right way for a resident
Well,
to
they
respond?
can either call the non-emergency number, or they can call 911. The police will respond.
Right.
Obviously, they will prioritize it. There have been some situations where the police were dealing with a serious incident
course.
and didn't have the manpower to respond, but they will respond to those. people should remember that they have to be farther than 150 feet from a residence or from a building or from a structure. You have to have the permission of the property owner set up. So it's very restricted once you look at the law. There's not many places where you could set it off. So basically, anyone setting off these fireworks is probably in violation of the law already, and I would encourage anyone to go ahead and report it to police, and they'll respond.
My point is that the state opened this door by
Well, they
allowing the sale of
absolutely
it.
did, yes.
And I think
Yes.
this board should send a resolution to our state representative and our state senator saying, well, this is
Help.
unacceptable. I just think it is.
I can go ahead and prepare that for the next agenda if you would like.
Thumbs up from the chief.
Yeah. I'm sure I'm not the only board member. The rest of your phones have to be ringing as well. Pardon?
No intoxication
Why,
Gotcha.
with fireworks?
with fireworks.
Yeah, they're dangerous.
I said it at the last meeting. You know, I have an elderly dog, and every time it goes off, now what we have to do is we blare music so he can't hear it, but sometimes it doesn't matter. And he sits there and he just shakes.
I think
And
it
that's
has to be
everyone,
dealt with
a
at
lot
a
of people.
state level. I mean, it's a burden on our police department, it's a burden on our residents. I think it needs to be dealt with at a state level. Okay, well, that's all. I'm going to get off my soapbox and I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, meeting adjourned.